Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film, and this year's podcast media partner for the deadCenter 2023 Film Festival. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we made it. Another successful deadCenter. Amazing teamwork from Daniel Bokemper and Joe Light over at the Cinematropolis. We are wrapping down today's conversation by looking back at the highlights, including some of our favorite films and some of the things we wrote or podcasted about. So today, I'm going to be sitting down with the Cinematropolis team, which again includes Daniel Bokemper and Joe Light. We're also going to be talking with two of our very good friends from the GoodTrash Media team. It's the GoodTrash Genre Cast. We're going to talk about this year's festival experience before exchanging notes on some of our favorite films. And then we're going to close out by just thinking about our favorite moments of the festival overall. Joining me today, returning to me, I should say, the man, the legend. He's got, just double checking, biggest beard in the room. Daniel Bokemper, contributor here at the Cinematropolis and Flick Attack. Daniel, welcome back.
Happy to come back to you, Caleb. Right in the dead center of this dang podcast. And it's probably the funniest I'm going to get.
Oh, should I drop that? I should drop that halfway through the podcast. Yeah.
Drop what?
Yeah, you said dead center of the podcast, so I've got to drop it in the middle.
Yeah, you must.
Yeah.
And double it, honestly.
Yeah, legally required.
Well, Daniel, as always, pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you for your hard work at this year's deadCenter.
Oh, of course. It is always a tremendous amount of fun.
Also joining us, she is contributing to the Cinematropolis for deadCenter, but she's also an editor at Static Media. This is also known as the website that owns Slash Film. Joe Light. Joe, welcome back.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for everything you did at deadCenter this year.
No, it was so fun. It was great. It was motivating because otherwise I don't get out very much. So it was good to be there.
Nothing like a film festival to get all of us off of the couch.
To get the damn cinephiles out of their homes.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the next guest, he really needs no introduction to steal a line from David Letterman. You've already heard his voice, the beautiful dulcet tones of the GoodTrash Genre Cast co-host, also the GoodTrash Media co-founder, Dalton Stuart. Dalton, welcome to the show.
Hey, Caleb. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us, man.
I'm so excited.
And thank you for all your hard work. I'm not deadCenter, and I know we don't technically fall into the same publication, but you worked hard. You guys were hustling recaps out every day, a couple times a day sometimes. Great work.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we tried our best.
And last but certainly not least, this is the first time this person has ever joined us as not the subject, but yet a voice amongst the reviewers and the critics. I'm talking, of course, about Alex Sanchez, who this year is a GoodTrash Genre Cast deadCenter 2023 contributor, but also listeners will know him because he's a comedian and he's a star of many films, including the upcoming Bugman. You were last featured, I believe it was the Arrows of Outrageous Fortune interview, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you so much. Great to be back.
I love all of you, but I haven't talked to Alex in a while.
That's right.
So Alex, tell me, how have you been? How's life?
Oh boy. I mean, who knows? Life's been okay. I've done a lot of movies since Arrows. Lately I've got Bugman coming out. I had a great time at deadCenter. I've been getting back out and doing comedy more. I took a big hiatus, as did we all, from leaving my house. And so I'm just now getting good at comedy again. Other than that, not a ton going on.
Listen, you never lost it, man. Let's be real.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
In fact, when we were in the Hell Hath No Fury screening for Hell Hath No Fury together, and it brought the biggest smile on my face to hear your laugh. That sounds so dumb, but you just have such a distinct laugh. And when I'm in a movie theater and I hear your laugh, I'm like, that means this was funny. Good job.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that I don't think of myself as a discerning laugher, though.
Well, if it makes you laugh, the way you laugh brings joy to me.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
So, discerning or not.
Alex's laugh brought a lot of joy to the people of deadCenter. This is not the first time it came up.
I heard people said it to me enough that I became self-conscious. Yeah.
That's not good.
It was fine. It was fine.
Was it Tay Lux? Was
like
one of the
Tay
filmmakers
Lux, yeah.
at the Comedy Shorts was like, great laugh, dude.
Yeah. It was very funny.
Hey, listen, you know what? Seth Rogen just got cast as Donkey Kong purely based on his laugh. So I'm just saying it's not a bad skill to have.
Distinctive laugh. That's something.
So listeners, before we get into today's deadCenter focused conversation, firstly, if you are listening to the show today and you've enjoyed this conversation or our previous, or maybe you haven't heard our previous conversations and you're just trying to get the Dead Center highlights, make sure to support us by subscribing and leaving us a rating and a review on your preferred podcast app, most specifically Apple and Spotify. There was a guy on a recent review who called us pretentious, and I'm all about taking. It's cool. It's cool. No,
it's
like
fine.
negative reviews are fine. What I'm saying though, listeners, if you actually enjoy the show and you've always been like, man, I should probably go and rate the show, I gotta counterset that negative review. So you gotta bring me the 5 stars to offset the 1 star. And it was literally just shrugs emoji. I'm in Oklahoma and this should be cool. This is pretentious. 1 star.
Come on.
Stay mad, hater.
Which is fine. I don't want him listening to us anyway. Genuinely, I don't want him listening to us anyway. But also, for those of you who
if you're listening, turn it off right now, or I'll find out.
I'm pretty sure I've said the word turd on this podcast before, therefore we're not pretentious.
Strong argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They must have listened to our Bo is Afraid conversation.
Yeah,
that's probably the most pretentious we've gotten on this show in a while. I mean, it was a great. I stand by it, but it was definitely the most like film academia adjacent. I wouldn't say film academia, but film academia adjacent type analysis conversation we've had in a while. But whatever.
Having a film professor on will.
That does help.
That'll do it.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, James is a treasure. Take your 1 stars and shove them where the sun doesn't shine. That good stuff. Okay, so listeners, another programming announcement. So you've probably noticed if you are subscribed, we've been putting out a lot of Dead Center coverage. I think we're going to have roughly around, if I'm counting right, I think it's 11, maybe 12 interviews in total, or at least episodes. So hey, that means after this episode, we're taking a little breather for a few weeks, roughly a month. We're not going to be back in June, which I know is crazy. There's a lot of big movies in June. There's a Flash movie. There's a Wes Anderson movie. He's saying Flash with air quotes.
A lot of big movies.
Big movies was what was in air quotes.
Yeah.
I guess Asteroid City.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, okay. Box office wise, big movie.
Yeah.
The one I definitely am more interested in is Asteroid City.
Definitely.
Pretentious.
You're right.
Yeah,
Wes
yeah,
Anderson.
good point. Guys, Tom Hanks is going to be in a Wes Anderson movie. I'm so happy.
Pretty dope.
Pretty good.
We also, you got Elementals coming out. We've got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which, that's anyone's guess because I like the 4th one more than most people. So that, I might like this one too. Who knows?
We'll see. I'll only like it if they bring back Mutt.
Okay. This is a side tangent, but I have to bring it up because I tweeted this whenever the first trailer came out. Do you think they acknowledged Mutt at all? Is it a passing reference to he was a great son and then he died and then move on? Or is it he never existed and they don't acknowledge him? I'm genuinely curious about how they do it.
Okay, so I just rewatched 4 for the genre cast, and I'm thinking it's going to be similar to how they just show a picture of Sean Connery.
Yep.
Maybe Mutt's died in Vietnam or something. I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah. Or I don't know. Could be.
He's off on his own adventures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He had a midlife
finding
crisis.
himself, converting to Catholicism, talking to John Bernthal.
Yeah. He moved
really
away.
doing the work.
He makes Italo disco now or something. Yeah.
That would be great if they wrote that. I mean, probably not for the viewers, but that would be kind of funny if they wrote, and he just had a midlife crisis and started going on talk shows. We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
What do we think about those movies? Well, don't worry. We're going to be back with a Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning review. And if we are not able, I promise, this is a promise, listeners, if we're not able to do a kind of catch-up episode before that, we will do a really quick rapid fire thumbs up, thumbs down at the beginning of the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, best movie title of the summer episode. Lastly, hey, I'm going to be attending Oklahoma's largest pop culture convention, SoonerCon, on Friday, June 30th and Saturday, July 1st. So for those listeners who are not familiar, SoonerCon is a collaborative, 100% volunteer organized effort backed by the 501c3 nonprofit Future Society of Central Oklahoma. Sounds like they paid me to say that. They didn't. The convention brings fans, creatives, academic professionals, artists, authors, musicians, small and large businesses, and community members together in Norman, Oklahoma. I'll be there. I'll be on some panels. Not sure which ones yet. More updates. Follow us on Twitter at the Cinematrop and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematropolis. All right, let's get to the real important stuff, though. Dead Center. Sorry for all those programming announcements. Pesky. Those are not about Dead Center. We're here to talk about Dead Center 2023, the film festival that was. And just a general question for you guys. Was this sort of the return to form for Dead Center as it existed pre-pandemic? And what I mean is despite giving the festival tons of coverage over the last 3 years, I actually have not attended anything in person other than the drive-in movies since 2019. I was going to go last year, but had got COVID right before the festival and wasn't able to attend, which yeah, anyway, I guess I dodged a bullet.
Sure.
But yeah, COVID round 2, I guess, but whatever. So it's kind of surreal going to this year where it felt like everything was like, it's old school. We're back at the Harkins, centralized Harkins Bricktown, MOA, Oklahoma City Museum of Art. And then, they did, this year was First American Museum, which was not in the 2019 and pre-iteration, but they had sprinkled in throughout the pandemic, along with several other venues they did not choose to use this year. So it's a long way of saying, is deadCenter back, guys? Daniel, I'm throwing it to you first.
Yeah, I think so. I will say, not to foo-foo all of the high attendance that it had, but like I attended last year, and it was kind of nice to be at a theater of like 3, maybe 4 people, and have, someone like Sunrise Tibicani like actually forward the film. And he is so good at. Oh,
Sunrise is a rock star at
He's
introing
so cool.
films and asking audience questions or filmmaker Q&As.
I feel like I just followed him around because and not intentionally, but I just ended up winding up at like consistently the movies that he was presenting, and to have that was a very personalized experience. Kind of felt like Nicole Kidman in the AMC commercials, like a little bit.
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. But
Sunrise, if you're listening to this, I want to see that trailer. Can we make that happen? I'll find the people to film it. Let's do it.
You should get Lauren to play Nicole Kidman too. She knows she has it.
No, it needs to be Sunrise saying Heartbreak feels like.
True. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that would make more sense. But yeah, I think it is a return to form in a lot of ways, and yeah, despite the packed crowds, it's actually what makes it kind of fun and feel special, and it's kind of a reminder that this is an actual film festival here, because unfortunately, due to circumstances, when you do go to sparsely attended theaters and things like that, it's hard to believe that many people care other than the people who are there, or the people watching at home, whoever that may be. I'm going to assume that was probably not quite as high of a, like, I don't know how well the digital festival did, to be honest, last year. I know there's a little bit of that this year.
I don't know specifically, but I can say there were definitely several people I talked to who were like, I'll just watch it at home on via the portal.
Yeah, and hopefully that did well, and people were still at the very least seeing the films that were presented here. But yeah, I do think it was a return to form. And I think also one thing that I didn't really get to experience was any Q&As last year. I just don't think there were that many filmmakers. I feel like I saw one maybe.
There weren't. I don't know the specific number, but I remember I was talking to Crystal Youssef, the head of marketing, before the festival. She was like, yeah, filmmakers actually, like, there's been a few here and there in the previous years, but this year they're coming back in much larger numbers than the previous 2 years.
Yeah, but that's all to say is, just 2 personal highlights for me that weren't about the films themselves, but Lily Gladstone and her Quantum Cowboys Q&A that we went to the second screening, you and I, and her to talk briefly about Killers of the Flower Moon.
So yeah, let's pause for listeners who aren't familiar.
Yeah,
you might not know who Lily Gladstone is yet, but you're probably gonna know who she is after this fall, because she's probably gonna be in talks for an Oscar. That's just total speculation based off of the buzz of her performance from the Cannes screening, but she's like the top.
She's got Oscar buzz.
She's got Oscar buzz.
Yeah, she's got Oscar buzz.
Yeah. So good to be able to sit in a relatively small theater at the Museum of Art and see her talk about a film that isn't Killers of the Flower Moon, but then in a roundabout way talk about Killers of the Flower Moon.
In fact, and we'll talk about Quantum Cowboys. Not only that, she was talking about stuff that I was like, holy shit. I love this. We're talking about quantum mechanics, alternate parallel realities, animation, like all this stuff that you don't normally get. And what was wild about it, and I might have a slight crush on her after this weekend, is like she actually knows that. She's like, I don't really know a lot about this, but would then proceed to go really deep on all that
Explain
stuff.
it for 30 minutes.
Doing it, It's like, no, I'm no expert, but if you read this, and this,
So, and actually, the director's the real guy who knows all the stuff. But here's quantum theory, and you're like, whoa.
Oh,
anyway, didn't mean to steal your thunder. She was amazing.
No, it's okay.
And that was nice because it was an intimate enough Q&A that they had Sunrise left time for like 3 questions. And I was literally I was like, I'm going to ask a question, but I was like, what? She answered every question I could ask before we got to the Q&A, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
So, anyway, continue.
No, not at all. But that's all to say my second highlight involved another filmmaker, Peter Sluska, and him talking about the process of making his 30-minute the 10-year process, I should say, to make his 30-minute stop motion short film Hard Boiled. which is a play on the police procedural, but it's all food. Starring the primary detective duo is a Ham and Eggs. I think.
I'm so mad I didn't
stuff.
go to the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, it was good. Definitely catch it. I suspect there's going to be ways to find
I
this
love
thing.
stop motion so much.
And this one is so good. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but it reminds me too, especially hot off of Phil Tippett's Mad God. That thing took like what 20, 25 years, maybe a little. No, I think he was working on it.
It was at least 25 years.
Yeah, and it's like
almost 30, I think.
Yes, and it's like, and he was basically a skeleton crew. I think Phil Tippett had maybe one other person periodically help him.
Yep.
And this guy was all by himself besides the voice acting. And it's like, 10 years sounds about right for 30 minutes, but it is so good. And just to hear, also just be so like humble. He'd say that offhandedly, but then he would like go into the detail of what was the most fun things to actually make. And it's like, yes, this tower of angel food cake, this like angel food cake skyscraper I made took 3 years to completely animate this one sequence and get this all done. But it's like clearly enjoyed it. And like, it probably did bring him stress, but like at the same time, I don't know. It's like you actually get people in their enthusiasm about it. And sometimes when you see like online interview, like not our online interviews, but I mean like for stuff like IMDb and like stuff that's the more like kind of formulaic, kind of what I would consider like boilerplate interviews, you don't always see that passion, or I don't know. It's something about that. And I think the intimacy of the film festival Q&A specifically, you get to see some filmmakers and performers as their like genuine selves a little bit. Again, I might be like providing a false reverence to it, but there is something to do with that intimacy of actually being there and then having the chance to actually ask them a question yourself. It's really good. But no.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's like, that's one of the, at least as a film goer, like that's one of the selling points for me of a film festival is you're in the room with the people who made it. And it goes both ways. I mean, at least for the filmmakers I talk to, they're like, oh, I get real feedback from people. Like, and not saying like criticism, but like, hey, I get to hear what people are thinking about the movie in real time.
Yeah. Evidence of people engaging in your art seems very validating and rewarding. And I'm glad that we get to have that here.
So good to hear. Joel, I'll turn it to you. How was your festival experience?
It was great. It was abbreviated. Unfortunately, I was out of town for part of it, but what I did get to experience, I do think felt like it was back to normal. I mean, as much as you can be. I said to you earlier, it was hot. Harkins is so hot. I don't know why. But that, again, it just felt like, let's wait in line in the sun and be sweating too much and then go inside and sweat some more. But yeah, it was really fun. And I think I'll just echo what Daniel said. It's just like, I think being in those settings is so inspiring. It sparks, at least for me, my creativity, because there's people out there doing stuff and making stuff, and I'm like, I got to do it. I got to finish that script. I got to get with that friend and talk about these things. So that's what I always love about going to festivals, is just seeing people doing really original work and just having that creative sort of juice start flowing and just being really inspired. So yeah, had a great time. Good Q&As. I did miss that a lot. I mean, I do, like I said, I love a screener. I love to sit at home. I love to be multitasking, but I do also really like the theater going experience, and you can't get that if you're not going to fests and seeing the Q&As and feeling that energy. So yeah, I had a really great time.
I think I would say, to echo what you just said about the difference between the screener experience versus the in-theater experience, is I did have, via the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle, which you, Joe, Daniel, me are all members, and Arthur Gordon from GoodTrash Media are all members of. We were part of the group that helped judge the Oklahoma feature films and short films. I am only mentioning that because that means we got advanced screener access. So I saw Hell Hath No Fury. In fact, I found out when I was talking to people, I saw it before most of the cast had seen it.
Oh.
So if you're watching at home, you're like, oh wow. So we were one of the first ones to see it. And it was really good at home. Like Laura and I got together on the couch. We had a good old time. It's like 70 minutes, super fun. But I will tell you, like, and I don't know, I'll turn it over to Dalton and Alex here in a second, but like seeing it in a theater with a captivated audience, I mean, it took that movie up a few notches in terms of the laugh factor. The running gags hit harder. Like people would kind of feed off each other. You know, again, theatrical experience making a huge difference there.
Yeah. I messaged the Burnses about that tripping gag because I loved it so much, but I'm sure it played so amazing in person. So yeah, you can't get that if you're just at home with your dog like I was.
Mm-hmm. It's just not quite the same. On that note, though, Dalton, Stuart, how was your deadCenter experience this year?
Pretty Good. I had a fabulous time. Yeah. I mean, we haven't, Alex has gone, several times over the last couple of years as an actor, but I haven't been to cover it since 2017. I think I caught a couple of screenings, like individual screenings in maybe like 18 or 19. But yeah, I haven't been, through any of the sort of pseudo pandemic years. Didn't go to any of those. And so, yeah, this is, a big return for me. And I had a great time doing what Alex called gonzo journalism, which basically just meant giving weed to fest programmers and filmmakers.
Yeah.
That's gonzo journalism, if you ask me. It was a great time, man. And I can't wait to go back again next year. It's as Daniel and Joe have both said, like, it's just nice to be in the room with people that made the thing and get to hear their thoughts on it, get to kind of bounce your thoughts about it off of them. It's just nice to be somewhere where the currency is talking about movies, something I kind of know how to do and, will always fall back on when I don't know how to relate to somebody. I'll start talking about movies.
It's the ultimate small talk. If you're like, it's like sports and movies and screw sports. So movies.
Right. But yeah, you're at a place where that's most of those people small talk too.
Absolutely.
It's great. And even the folks who aren't like, have a deep well of knowledge or just like super jazzed about the fest. You know what I mean? So whether it's, you're talking to somebody that's more of a documentary person than a narrative person, like, which happened to me this over the weekend, ended up talking to somebody that's, a documentary producer, not really into narrative. And I'm more of a narrative enjoyer. So, just talking about like sort of those differences. It's great stuff. Yeah. It's just nice to connect with people.
And if nothing else, you always like, what movie are you most excited to watch if it's the beginning of the festival, or if you're towards the end? Hey, what have you watched that you really liked?
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
And like so many conversations, and then it strikes up a natural conversation. The next thing you know, it's Saturday night at 1 a.m. and we're stuffing cold Empire pizza down our throats, talking to random strangers at a party, post after party. I don't know.
Man, do you remember when they escorted all the pizzas out?
So many pizzas.
Okay, so there at the end of the after party on Saturday night, there was a ton of leftover pizza. And the way that they got it out of the building was by having a big dolly of pizza, a big stack of pizzas that they wheeled out. And the stack of pizzas was escorted by no less than 4 full cops.
That is not an exaggeration. Literally 4 cops.
Literally 4 cops.
And while we're talking about this, Oklahoma City Police Department, make those fuckers wear pants. I don't want to see a law enforcement officer's calves. No, thank you.
Yeah, they were wearing like pretty short
shorts. Don't show me those knees.
They shouldn't be that comfortable,
They were escorting pizza that people had already eaten at the party.
Well, no.
Cold, full pizzas. Yeah. I think that they were making sure that it didn't go to anybody who needs it.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Those are my
They were literally, it sounds like, you have a badge, you can take as much pizza as you want. If you don't have a badge, well, sorry. This is evidence.
Although Alex's friend Elise did manage to squirrel away a full box of pizza somehow. He came back and was handing it out.
She was so powerful, though.
Yeah, a very powerful move, no doubt.
Alex, other than the police patrolling the pizza, tell me a little bit more your experience. You're as a press gonzo journalist versus being actually in a film. What was your experience and maybe the difference from previous years?
I was a lot more motivated to talk to people about the films themselves rather than just whatever project I was doing. It was more about taking in information than it was about hobnobbing, which was nice and pretty refreshing. I'm not a guy. I have not seen a lot of movies. I'm not a cinema guy. I'm a TV guy. I'm a books guy, and I'm a podcasts guy. So I've seen probably less than 80 movies in my life, but I had a really great time. It was really great.
Awesome.
Yeah, I watched definitely sat in more screenings this year than I ever have at any previous deadCenter.
Man, that's what I love to hear.
All hits. Yeah.
Yeah, good. I like that you call that out because when you have a project in a festival, you're basically a salesperson for your thing, and it's a lot, and that's a lot of work, by the way. It's kind of, depending on the kind of person you are, it's probably draining. Versus you get to just like go and take it all in.
Yeah, it was nice.
That's cool. Well, you guys have already said everything I'm going to say. Honestly, in full disclosure, I was in the press room for like 2 full days. So I did on Sunday, I was like movie day, and it was double feature Lily Gladstone Day. So I saw Quantum Cowboys, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but also the closing film Fancy Dance, which I'll also talk about more in a minute. So that was super fun. Party on Saturday was the only, I went to the rooftop party at the beginning, which is always a fun one. all the humans there were lovely. They were cool. I met a couple of filmmakers that were awesome. But I got there like after all the people, like the people I'm sitting with right now, had already left. So I was like, oh, okay. Laura and I basically got to the point where we were either just like schmoozing or like standing around. So not the same as Saturday's party where everyone was rolling up the sleeves. We've seen some movies. Let's get some free booze and just shoot the shit.
Yeah. Great night for drink tickets.
Oh, great night. For drink tickets. Yeah. Mickey Reese randomly showed up. That was the only time I saw him at the entire festival was on Saturday night.
Yep. He told me, he was like, I'm going to show up to one of these things and it's going to be the Saturday night one. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Honestly, I think that was a good choice.
Yeah, I agree. That's fun.
But fun times, I think the thing that it really reminded me of is just the value of the community aspect. And it sounds like really sentimental and stuff. But I think the thing that I've always loved about deadCenter, or at least the idea of deadCenter, is that, hey, we're bringing filmmakers who've poured literally their blood, sweat, and tears on budgets way smaller than they actually need. Mm-hmm. So these are real passion projects. They bring it to the festival to show to their family, their friends, the film lovers in Oklahoma City. So whether those are casual film goers or they're people like us who are critics or podcasters, and it just brings everyone kind of together. And that's super sentimental, but the older I get, the sweeter it is. It's like we're all working really hard to do our thing throughout the year. So taking a weekend to say, hey guys, let's all just like come together, watch some movies and celebrate together. I don't know. It felt right. And I will say, despite, I think the festival team doing really great work adapting to virtual, especially in 2020 where they had to do it in literally like 3 months, it just wasn't the same. It didn't quite capture the same magic that I felt here this last weekend. And it has me so pumped to do more deadCenters in the future.
That's such a good way to put it, Kayla. I mean, you're walking around for us anyway. You're walking around the fest all weekend with this thing that says media around your neck, and you're like worried about how that's going to color your interactions with people. And like to a person, I just felt like so welcomed by everybody I talked to, filmmaker, programmer, like whatever it was. Like everybody was just happy, that people were excited about the fest. It was awesome. Yeah,
I genuinely believe this is a festival that is built out of love, compassion, and deep love of cinema and community, so
hell yeah.
Again, sentimental, but hey guys, it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. Maybe you should go. So let's, we've talked a lot about the experience. Let's shift into talk about movies though. So there are a number of narrative feature films that we all saw. We're probably not going to get to all of them individually. So let's just start by talking about, let's all pick two, at least two to start, with the exception of Quantum Cowboys, which we'll talk about because at least four of us at this table saw that one. What were your two favorite narrative feature films that stood out? Which two stood out to you and why? I'll start with you, Dalton.
Well, first off, I've got to talk about the Burns Brothers' Hell Hath No Fury. It was the opening night movie, and boy, did it hit. I didn't get to see their last film, Shifter, unfortunately, so I have a blind spot there. But, I was a big fan of Electric Nostalgia and was really curious what they were cooking up. And boy, is it different than some of their other stuff that I've seen. It's such a good time. It's this sort of, neo-noir murder comedy of errors. And it's just such a good time at the movies. I'm sorry. I know you said to talk about my favorites, but I want to poo-poo something. Can I be a naughty boy?
You can be a naughty boy and poo-poo something if you want to. It's okay.
I saw, because I know we're going to talk about Bottoms, and I know we're going to talk about Quantum Cowboys, and those are the other two features I saw.
Okay.
So the fourth feature, because I don't think I saw five.
We only saw four features. Yeah, we saw four features.
So I will talk about
the same two.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls, which has some of the coolest puppets I've ever seen in an independent film.
That's gorgeous.
Just some incredible practical effects. Really good costuming, really solid cinematography, and some of the worst fucking Reddit jokes I've heard in the last 10 years.
So annoying. It's crazy. I'll wait my turn.
Yeah, I wanted so bad to get on board with it. I tried so hard, and thank God for Alex and Dustin for keeping me from walking out of the theater. Because some of the coolest stuff is in the back half.
Yeah.
And the first 15 minutes really turned me
that's
off.
not good if you're turned off in 15 minutes.
Yeah, and the rest of the movie was spent trying to claw my way out of a hole, and I finally ended up
Alex,
around.
Did you have to restrain him? Literally, no, dude. Just you hold his hand and you say, "Hang on, it's gonna get better. I promise."
Not physically, but he crouched. There was he was his butt left his chair for a second. I do remember me say, "Hey, are we really gonna?" And I was like, "I have to subject myself to this whole thing." Yeah, it felt like my duty.
which is too bad because, to big up the filmmaker a little bit, I know Worm from 2013. This is Andrew Bowser, who's the writer-director star of Onyx. Also had this film Worm at deadCenter in 2013. I know Dustin's a huge fan of that film, has been championing it for years, and I think it won some awards at that fest. So, I'm always excited anytime a filmmaker wants to go from like sort of experimental one-shot, crime thrillers to kind of a broad 80s throwback comedy. Like, okay, I appreciate the swing. Don't get me wrong. It's just not for me. But if a love letter to like Goonies and Ghostbusters and Gremlins sounds exciting to you, you might have a good time at this. I will just say that the jokes are not really my speed.
Are you sure you're not talking about What Rhymes with Reason?
I didn't see What Rhymes with Reason, but I know
there's a lot of Goonies. There's a very heavy Goonies vibe.
Goonies.
Yeah,
interesting.
They even make a joke about it in the movie, but yeah,
interesting. Yeah, this Sunrise kind of mentioned that it was going to be reference heavy when he introed it, and that immediately like got my hackles up. I was like, oh boy, what are we in for? And honestly, there's not like any direct like referencey stuff. I was kind of expecting like deliberate on the nose. There's only one like right at the very end.
Parodies.
Yeah, totally. For like scene for scene ripoffs. Yeah, same. There is like one direct scene lift from another movie's ending at the end of the film, but it's cute. It kind of works for me.
Very cool.
But yeah, Hell Hath No Fury. To end on a positive note. Yeah. Great cast, great costuming. I mean, it looks incredible. The cinematography on this thing is great. Jacob, good job, dude.
They make movies that look like 10 times more expensive than they are. It's crazy.
And every single cent is on that screen.
And it's like they shot that in 10 days. I don't know if that came up in the Q&A, but they shot that under a really tight so considering the resources and time they have, it's just remarkable how top notch it is. Yeah. And I think the writing was really strong on that one too. Hey Alex, Onyx though, give us your thoughts. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. You don't have to. We have to take turns. We can bounce around a little bit.
I want to hear. So my thing with Onyx is a couple of things. First of all, before I forget, I don't think that the ending was a straight rip off of Beetlejuice. They used the song. What's the one that's like jump in the line, rock your body in time. Okay, everybody. They use that one, but they're not. They just use the song.
But they do the floating thing. And that's
I forgot that they float.
With Winona Ryder doing the float.
I forgot that they float in that. I was already checked out. You know what? That's my fault. I think that so when you make a movie based on a viral video, you're gonna run into some problems. And I think that it's the same set of problems that a lot of the SNL movies in the 90s ran into.
Ooh, okay.
You're going to run into how much do we use our character's catchphrase that he definitely has? How much do we lean into the stuff from the video that people already like? How much of that makes the transition from this character's videos to his real life stuff? And I think that he's playing a character whose deal is that he's annoying, right? That's
risky.
That's the deal. That's what makes the videos. That's the buy-in. That's what made the videos popular. And so it makes sense that you would want to continue to do that for the whole movie, but it doesn't okay, you know what it's like? The Pepsi and Coke test from some Malcolm Gladwell book. He talked about how they did taste tests for Pepsi and Coke, and Pepsi would always win the sip test because it was a little sweeter than Coke.
Mm-hmm.
But when people would have like a 2 liter of Coke versus a 2 liter of Pepsi, they always preferred the Coke because the sweetness of the Pepsi got cloying. So it's something that's good in small doses, but if you stretch it out over an hour and a half, it cannot sustain itself.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about the character of Onyx the Fortuitous. Now, the rest of the movie, I had a pretty good time with. I really loved the puppets.
Cool puppets, dude.
Unbelievably cool practical effects. I think that this would have made even a good kids movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they had cut all the fucks and shits out of it and marketed it as a kids movie, it would have done. I think that I would have given it more grace for the jokes.
This is the thing I forgot to bring up and that we had talked about when we got out of it. It's like it's very unclear who the film is for.
Right.
Like just maturity level.
Right, because it's like a kids movie for adults, but the jokes aren't adult and they're like about, like sex and fucking and stuff, but they're not adult jokes.
Like they're like
they're very chaste jokes about sex because Onyx's whole deal is that he's an adult virgin.
He's like a virgin.
Yeah.
So is it kind of like when you're in high school and you think you're making like edgy sexual jokes, but they're really not adult jokes? Like
it's like, isn't it funny that everybody is like more comfortable with sexuality than Onyx is, kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of like how to put a pin on it.
He says fuck a lot, and he doesn't need to. Like, I'm not like a prude about saying fuck, but in this movie specifically, it is tonally weird.
Yeah. Big time.
How to do like a hard R version of this movie, and then still make all the puppets were very PG. All the I don't know. You know what it feels like? It feels like 80s PG.
Yeah,
like if he had just said fuck once and gotten away with like a PG-13 thing, I think that this movie would have been a slam dunk for people who are like exactly 12.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. You know, the fun thing about the movies that aren't as good is you can sometimes spend a lot of time talking about them. I love it. I know, because I'm digging this. Like, you're trying to figure out why did this movie suck, basically.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
You know what I like? I like his tiny wines.
He drinks tiny wines.
He's
got a little,
But he carries in his little lunchbox. He carries a little tiny wine.
Like a little Sutter home.
Like a picnic wine?
Yeah, like a tiny little picnic wine.
Tiny little, like an airplane
It's a very
wine.
goofy bit.
He takes one sip of it, and then he's loosened up enough to be social.
Open up. Yeah.
There's some there's some
good
jokes.
business.
There's some good bits of business in there. Man, there's so much good stuff in this movie that I wish had been used on a good movie.
That's always a tough spot to be into when you're like, there's enough good that you're like, if it was just in a better movie,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
So what, Alex, would be your picks for 2 feature films that stuck out to you?
So Dalton and I saw all the same movies. So my other one, since we're going to talk about the other 2, is definitely Hell Hath No Fury. I loved it.
Awesome.
I popped really hard for Hell Hath No Fury. It's exactly like right up my alley. It's very cartoony. It reminds me tonally of a lot of like my favorite sketch stuff. There's some, and this is for nobody. There are some line reads that Jacob's novel does that remind me of Tim Kalpakis from The Birthday Boys. There's some really like over the top, overwrought stuff that reminds me of like stuff Scott Aukerman would do on the Comedy Bang Bang show. Just like some of my favorite comedy of the 2010s, basically.
They said
and I talked to the Burns brothers. They have never seen The Birthday Boys.
Really? That's so they told us both. I think they said in the Q&A, they also did it on the interview we did with them. The note they kept giving to Jacob was go full cartoon. Just go more cartoon. Like anytime they that was the consistent, like, no, you're going big. That's great. Do that, but like times 2.
Loved it. I loved what they got out of Jacob. I've never seen him go that big before, and I didn't realize he had that kind of timing with this kind of stuff. It was really impressive.
And Leah Philpott is like,
Leah Philpott
Carmen
is
San
so
Diego.
Cool.
She's a 90s cartoon character.
She's
pulled
unbelievable.
To life. Yeah, it's nuts. What a performance.
Yeah, she is incredible. I mean, the movie as a whole is I think is just a really great film. Her and Jacob both
unbelievable.
Elevate what was already a really good movie, you know. And just the way that she's under so many scenes looks like she's just agonizingly in her head, just like, I want to murder this guy so bad. Can we just get it over with? But also having to be like, yeah, things are great, things are fine.
It's just so good.
A lot of great like subtle acting there. Joe, how about you? What 2 features stuck out to you?
I mean, I also have Hell Hath No Fury on my list. We're probably all going to talk about it. I don't know. I'll just also throw a mention to Vinnie Hogan's music. I thought it was really good. It was like, from the opening credits, just really fun. I love the vibe of the movie, and I think that also is one thing that elevated it. So yeah, I don't know if I can say any more about that one. It's just really fun. I always loved their work, and that was sort of a new direction for them, I think.
Big time, yeah.
It was a big swing because essentially the history there is Vinny directed a musical comedy long time ago called the Fable of Shannon Cable. Dalton and I had seen that one way back in the day for Good Trash.
Long time ago.
And then obviously they had Electric Nostalgia, which is kind of that gothic horror, kind of heady genre. And then they've shifted that's basically just a time travel body horror, whereas this like went a totally different direction. Well, we haven't even mentioned yet. This is Zachary Burns' directorial debut. So
right.
So this is so Jacob directed the last two, and Vinny directed the first one. This is the first one Zachary had directed. I just think he hit a home run. Very strong right out the gate.
Really incredible debut. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just always look for genre films, specifically horror. So I am gonna throw Mind, Body, Spirit in there too. That yoga horror film that I enjoyed, had fun in. Is it the best horror movie I've seen? No. And I was actually messaging with Zach Burns about this yesterday, and he was like, people said that was the scariest movie they've ever seen. And I was like, probably not, but I was like, it's fun. So I told him to go see it too.
I saw part of your review and got so mad when I found out that was a horror movie. I felt so stupid. I just very briefly looked at the blurb and was like, takes over her mother's yoga studio. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll get to that one.
Yeah. No.
What?
I always look for them. I don't know. I always have fun with horror movies at Fest because either they're really awesome. Like I saw the premiere of Hereditary at Sundance, which is like one of my best festival stories of all time.
Dude, the South by Southwest crowd for that was also bonkers.
Oh, I bet it was.
Such late night horror movies at film festivals.
Yeah,
chef's kiss.
With the exhaustion of like a volunteer, which I was at that one. So yeah, I just always look for those, always have a good time. And that one I don't think disappointed. It was, I think, the second screening, so it was a little bit more chill. So I assume the first one was probably a little bit bigger, maybe a more in tune audience for it. But again, yeah, it was just fun. It was like very Evil Dead in its setup in terms of like it's a book. She finds it, she starts reading it, bad things happen. Yeah. So and that's what my review said too, is like if you know that, you know what's gonna happen, you know where it's gonna go, but some freaky things still happen, and they do some good camera work and some really good effects there as well. Like she stabs herself in the head at one point, and I was like, that looks pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I'm just like in the back row nodding, like, I remember this. Yeah. So those are my two narratives, I think.
I'm glad you called that out. Your review, I'll put it this way. I remember when I read the deadCenter blurb for it, like it kind of just flew across my schedule. I was like, that sounds okay. Your review actually got me way more interested in it. So listeners, cinematropolis.com, you can go read her full in-depth thoughts there.
That's right.
But I know you said it's not great, but also you're just like Evil Dead in a yoga studio. In fact, in our Evil Dead Rise review, I was literally like, I hope this is the future of the franchise. Just put it in like literally anywhere except for a cabin in the woods. Yeah. And I'm there. So
neighborhood swimming pool would be good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fill the pool of blood.
Right?
Yes. Or do it on a cruise ship, pool of blood.
Yes.
Oh,
kiddie pool, and then the mushroom with the blood dripping down, like
Love it.
There's a lot of stuff you can do with that.
So it doesn't sound like Mind, Body, Spirit quite goes there, but I like the idea that they even attempted to do this similar premise in a different setting. At least that's kind of neat.
Yeah, no, it was fun, and the two lead actors were there, and they were very enthusiastic again. So it's just really nice to see people talk about their work and learn about how the movie was made. So
very cool. Great recommends. Daniel Bokemper, what are your two films?
I'm going to take a stand against Hell Hath No Fury by not talking about it. It was a fine movie. I just figured everyone else was going to bring it up. So,
Jacob and Zach, I know you're listening. He said, I heard that Daniel Bokemper hated your movie.
Despised it.
Yeah.
Despised it. All those laughs by myself in my own home watching it were fake. I just forced myself to laugh.
That's right. I heard you say that earlier off mic. Yeah.
Good. I'm going to say it again. Say it twice. But yeah, no, that was a fine movie. But I didn't actually see that many narrative features. I actually, really at deadCenter, I end up going for the documentaries. I don't know why. I think that's just become kind of my thing. And
they get some good. They really do get
that's
some
the other
good
thing.
documentaries.
It's like you keep bringing some bangers that are going to go attend them. But they also the short films were made up a lot of my festival time. But there are a few narratives I want to talk, specifically the one that was at the bottom of the film festival itself, not Fancy Dance, but Bottoms, by Emma. And I always mess up her last name. I think it's Emma Seligman. Seligman. Okay, yeah, Emma Seligman. It is a high school comedy about two lesbians who are really want to lose their virginity before they go to college,
as one does.
Sure.
Yes. And
you have to, or they won't let you in.
They won't. Yeah. They don't give a shit about your GPA.
Yeah.
You are. Yeah. But yeah. And so they start a fight club to impress some cheerleaders,
as one does.
And yeah, it's very absurd, definitely in the adult animated film come to life, really. And I think it, like, to me, it felt like, we were talking about it earlier, Dalton, and I know you have thoughts on this. Not another teen movie, kind of the scary movie, the spoof movies, but was like way more like intelligent, I think, and a little more aware of itself.
Alex is shaking his head.
I actually disagree with that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think, okay.
But specifically because I think that it is more of a satire about like American high school than it is about American high school movies. It doesn't do any really direct nods. There's nothing in it that happens like all those other movies are, they're fine, but they're not about anything.
Yeah.
Like those movies are specifically
they're about how, like, isn't it weird the way we process high school in film? Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Or even
specifically not another teen movie.
Yes, not another teen movie, since it's part of that like scary movie sort of coaching tree. It has a lot more specific references to other movies, and it's about teen movies rather than it's being about teenhood.
I get that, but I also don't get how the audiences for that would be very different. Like, I don't know. I would still seem that, like, on some fundamental level, they may be going for the same thing.
Well, I guess what it sounds like Alex is saying is, like, the great success maybe of Bottoms is that it is, while catering to the same audience, it's carving out its own lane by being about teendom.
Yeah, and maybe
it's new, and not another teen movie was not new.
No, and maybe that's where it feels like very important. And we were saying, I was mentioning this earlier, it kind of, to me, feels like it might be this year's, and not for the obvious reasons, not having two strong female modes, but like Booksmart, like it kind of feels like that. But then also at the same time, I realize as much as I like that film, I have not revisited. So I question the longevity of something like this. Whereas I think, like, just because this comes from the same group of creators, but the Bodies, I think that film's probably has a little more permeance than this
absolutely.
one, even though they're about two different things. But I still think this one, just its comedic timing, and I think just the absurdity and the physical comedy and the actual fight choreography, because I also was like questioning whether or not that was really going to be
the way the violence is shot is really cool.
It is.
Rachel Sennett delivers a slow-mo uppercut that is like
that
cinema gold.
Yes. And I will say there is a part of me that was like hoping it was going to be a little more like going to go straight just Jackie Chan, like just right off the get fighting on the bleachers and everything like that. And it doesn't get quite to that, but I think it's still funny. And I don't think it was one thing I noticed with it. And maybe it's just because of the festival crowd and the reactions, but sometimes when films like that like every single line is something that you could laugh at potentially, that could get kind of exhausting. I wasn't really exhausted by this movie. So maybe a little bit in like the third act when they're trying to kind of wrap it all up, but then it brings itself back with like what I think is a really strong finale.
I agree.
So, but I do get that in the sense that it is, it's definitely not like a spoof, but it like kind of enters the same absurd realm that a spoof might.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. There is stuff in it that's like very clearly a parody of like real life high school messaging, for sure.
I do wonder, and I need to watch it again, but I'm like, to what extent does it like actually make fun of not so much Chuck Palahniuk's, but David Fincher's Fight Club? Like, I'm like, because there's
references.
There is, but they're kind of, it's slight, and I wouldn't call it like it's almost hard to call it an illusion unless things exploding.
I don't know. They're both deeply queer.
Yeah, definitely. They both have domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I'm learning so much about Bottoms I didn't know.
You gotta check out.
I just thought it was a queer comedy, a coming of age comedy, but apparently...
No, there's a little light terrorism.
Oh, there's some cool stuff in it too.
You guys just, I was already interested. You just sold me though.
Yeah.
Be gay, a new crime.
That's
Heck
right.
Yeah.
It's a 2-part formula. You said something, Daniel, that kind of connected to something Alex and I had talked about. I hadn't even thought about it, but you talked about the film like not feeling like it's running too long. And Alex and I kind of talked about, it's a real chuckle movie, not a big belly laugh movie. And that kind of works in its favor.
I agree.
It keeps you from like being worn out by the time like it goes real crazy in the third act.
Yeah, so you've still got juice left for that crazy third act.
Yes.
It's a movie I wanted to love and only like, and I think it's just because I was festival exhausted.
Yeah. I think that a rewatch I think there's a lot of like little things, little production we're going to talk about Bottoms later. I'm going to stop talking about it now.
Well, we're going to bring the Bottoms back at the bottom of the show.
Okay.
But real quick, I just want to shout out. We've already talked about how my two picks were Hell Hath No Fury, of course. We've already said all the things about it. Just huge congratulations to Zachary Burns on his directorial debut. Congratulations to Leah, N.H. Philpott, Jacob Burns, Jacob's novel, Vinny. Also, haven't even mentioned yet, co-host of this program, LaRon Chapman, has a small but important role in the film.
He's so funny.
He's so funny in it. He's really funny in it.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to him after the Q&A. I was like, LaRon, he's like, well, I'm not an actor, but they say I do this and this and this really good. And I was like, you kind of do. He's
That's
like,
true,
he's like, I guess I'm an actor now. Yeah. He's very
what
talented.
Happened to me. Yeah, it happens.
We're like, wait, you're actually really funny. Well, we'll put a camera in front of you. And then
yeah.
But anyway, huge shout out to everyone on that team. Congratulations on, I believe, 2 sold out shows. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I couldn't get a slip of paper for the second showing. They said there were some 2 seats in the front left, but I couldn't get, you have to get the paper to get in. And I just had to do the thing where I popped my head in and out because I was doing the Q&A. So as far as I'm concerned, 2 sold out shows and 2 great crowds. I think as awesome as the first crowd was, at least the 5-minute segments I popped in for the second one, there was the crowd engagement was just off the charts. There was a guy who would, see something. There was a guy who did this twice. He saw something coming, and I'm pretty sure it was the same guy. Like, oh shit, and then the punchline would something would happen. Yeah. It was really funny because everyone was reacting to him, and then the thing would happen, and it would be like a huge, It was magical. Fancy Dance, the closing night film.
I'm so mad I missed this one.
It was tough. You had to pick between Bottoms and Fancy Dance, and I was actually upset because when I saw Bottoms was on the schedule, I was like, oh, I'm going to see that, and then I just presumed that they were not at the same time. It wasn't until I think Thursday where I was like, wait a second, these are the same time. So Fancy Dance was the I don't know. I think they were both labeled a closing night film. My suspicion, and I don't know this is totally 100% speculation that I have not heard from anyone officially affiliated with the film festival. My speculation is that in order to get movies of that level, you probably they have to be a headliner of some sort. In this case, my guess is probably the closing night film, because I'm pretty sure they were both labeled closing night on the schedule. So this is the film that was the other film. So Lily Gladstone had 2 films, Quantum Cowboys, coming in 1 second, but the other one was Fancy Dance, and that's the film that is directed by the Oklahoma Icon Award winner for this year, Erica Tremblay, who's an Indigenous queer woman who has done a lot of really great work. She's doing some stuff on, I think she worked a little bit on Res Dog Season 2, is doing even more for Season 3. And this is her directorial debut, Fancy Dance. Summary, in short, basically, you're kind of following this queer Indigenous woman who is taking care of her partner's daughter. Partner's missing. That's kind of the premise of the movie at the very beginning is, hey, she's missing. And she's telling her sort of pseudo-adopted daughter, hey, when your mom, we're going to go to the, it's the powwow is kind of where they do the dance and stuff, but they're going to go to the powwow and your mom won't be there. That's kind of the thing she's telling the daughter character. But obviously they don't know where she is. And whenever the mom has been missing for a while, mom's parents, who are white people, show up and try to take custody away from Lily Gladstone's character in the film. So basically, this is all in the print, the setup, I promise. She goes and takes the daughter out of custody from the grandparents to take her to the powwow, because that's where she wants to go. And she's convinced that they will find, she's got her brother's also I think a police officer or detective, maybe FBI. I'll check on verify that. But with the team that is investigating the missing person's report. Mm-hmm. So the film is sort of following that journey of, hey, you're breaking the law. People are hunting you down. You have this daughter that you're trying to adopt, the daughter character that you're trying to kind of keep in a healthy space. While there's also this big question of what happened to her partner. Right. And here's the thing. I don't want to oversell it, but I will just say, I was deeply moved by this film. It's a really emotional film. There's some good laughs in there too. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's a joyless movie, but it's definitely dealing with some really intense stuff. Especially when you think about Indigenous women going missing and how no one seems to care about it. There's it touches on a lot of things that as a cis straight white person, I just generally don't think about. So for me, it was not only do I think Lily Gladstone is just crazy good in the lead role. I think Erica Tremblay has a real strong eye for a director. She has a really light touch, which is really good. So it kind of gives it this more naturalistic approach.
Nice.
That I personally like quite a bit. But it feels empathetic, I guess. Like, we're not invasive, but also we as the viewers empathize with the situation. And then I don't know. I keep going back to the quote, the Roger Ebert quote, where they call films that are basically equivalent to machines that generate empathy. Literally going to write that on my gravestone, I'm pretty sure. But it's one of those where, I know nothing about this world. But I've heard vaguely, oh yes, Indigenous women go missing, broken homes.
And when we make movies about this issue, right? It's like Wind River, right? It's about the white investigator who's trying to help, and not about the people who are living with this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I loved it. Nice. I give it 4.5 on Letterboxd. I honestly, only because I just don't ever want to give movies 5 stars instantly. I might give it 5 stars next week. We'll see. But I just need to let it sit with me for a while. But I thought it was a great film. There was also a really moving Q&A with Lily Gladstone and Erica Tremblay after the film. Again, hosted by features programmer Sunrise Tipicani, who also, again, only bats home runs with his Q&As. So.
Yeah, wow.
Highly recommend that film. It does not, so I did not realize this does not have distribution yet. So
It doesn't?
No, or at least not that they could talk about.
Oh.
Okay.
That's a surprise.
Basically, Lily Gladstone's like, I wish this movie would have come out after that other movie that's coming out.
Uh-huh.
She's like, because it would probably make this one a lot easier to sell. And then Erica's like, it still might come out after that other movie.
Okay.
This could be me maybe misreading that comment. And also I talked to a couple of people around the festival, and the general takeaway I got was that maybe it has not been picked up, but that might not be true. So
because they were at Sundance, were they at South by too?
Yes, both festivals.
That's a surprise.
That is a surprise, and it should be picked up. People need to see this movie. Like I feel as strongly about this as I do about like Moonlight, in terms of like, hey, people, this is a really. I mean, at least in terms of the fact that like this is a story you're never seeing made by this group of people, being put out at a very considerable. I mean, it's not like a super $100 million movie, but like it looks like a quality film you would go to the movies and see, like a mid-budget film in a good way, like the adult dramas that we don't see very much of anymore. Fingers crossed. Again, Fancy Dance. Please keep your eyes on it. Totally worth your time. That said, we've got to talk about the other Lily Gladstone movie, Quantum Cowboys.
The film that I was not too scared to immediately give 5 stars on Letterboxd.
5 stars.
I could tell. I knew you were gonna. I'm not looking at the website, but I knew you were gonna give it a 5.
Yeah, I pulled the trigger. I saw Rotoscope. I saw Lily Gladstone. I saw the title, and I was like, "Your boy's there."
Gotta go.
Yeah.
So, context, and I'll let Dalton tell us more about the movie. I'm sitting here. I have like 30 minutes to eat dinner before Q&A after I wrap up my day, and I go over to Dave's Hot Chicken because Dave's Hot Chicken is really delicious.
And that's what's in Bricktown.
And it's what's in Bricktown. Please give me those sponsorship dollars. And then these fine gentlemen in Dustin Cells come over and sit by me. And I was like, I got like 10 minutes. And you guys had just gotten out of Quantum Cowboy. And you guys are all like, best movie of the festival I've seen so far. Dustin's like, that's going to be in my top 10, no doubt, if not my number 1. And I'm like, holy cow.
It's a Dustin movie in a big way.
Oh, yeah. So with that said, Dalton, do me the favor, because I went and saw it and reached out to Daniel later that night. I said, hey, man, I'm going to Quantum Cowboys based on you all's recommendation tomorrow. You want to go?
Dalton also put the bug in my ear.
Yeah.
I couldn't shut up about it.
Please.
I was telling people to go to that second showing.
Yeah.
So Quantum Cowboys is a acid western that takes place in a kind of multiverse milieu. And if you're exhausted by that, I'm so sorry. But I promise this is a good one. I know that we're just doing multiverses to death the last couple of years.
They're the zombies of the 2020s.
God, you're so right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
The sad thing is we're not even that deep into it.
No. We've barely scratched the surface yet.
Yeah, we got 5 more years.
Yeah. Good. We'll just wait till the House of Mouse gets going. But yeah, so it takes that assignment very seriously. The filmmaker, whose name I'll get here in just a second.
He's like an astrophysicist.
Yeah, Jeff Marslett. His background is in science and physics, and he's very interested in this stuff. His first film, Mars, came out in 2010, and is about the colonization of Mars and predates all those conversations about that by quite a few years. So he's definitely like interested in trying to bring his background into his filmmaking, and they sort of set out to tell the story of these different intersecting, overlapping universes and use different animation styles to represent each one. And it's a lot of it's rotoscopes, it's being animated over live action footage. Some of it's just live action. Some of it looks like it's just animated.
Yeah. Some of it looks like they might have shot it and then hand drawn
that's
it.
That's rotoscope.
Yeah. Like there's it's not just one version of rotoscope.
Yeah,
like there's some that are very detailed. There's some that's like literally they took a regular pencil and drew.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's you're so right to bring that up because even within the medium of rotoscope, it's like they're using a couple of different like philosophies on how to do that.
There's one of them that looks like they just put the gun smoke filter over a live action, which was awesome.
It's so sick.
It's so cool.
It's really dope. It also involves the participation of John Doe from X and Nico Case from the Velvet Underground and a lot of other stuff.
Nico Case is not.
Oh, wait, who am I thinking of?
You're thinking of Nico from the Velvet Underground. Nico Case was in the New Pornographers.
I'm a fucking
idiot. Is it Nico Case or not?
It is Nico Case.
Yes.
I love Nico Case.
Me too. She looks great. She sounds great.
I love her so much.
Yeah, I'm aware of the John Doe head of the team. So it's my being wrong. But yeah, they both didn't collaborate on music for the film. And they both kind of play these, which to me is like part of the DNA of an acid western, because you think about like Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man has also got the collaboration of some I think Iggy Pop is in that. It's some other musicians.
Yep.
So that to me like kind of feels part of the DNA of that genre. Gary Farmer shows up also. Speaking of indigenous acting legends, obviously Lily Gladstone's about to pop, but Gary Farmer's been out here forever.
Oh, yeah.
He has a fun supporting role in it. And so, it's about this.
Just to shout out a white actor real quick, just in case we miss it. David Arquette.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
David Arquette
probably the most
crushes in this
He's
film.
the heavy in this film.
He is, in terms of, he's probably the most air quotes famous. Also, he is white. So that's, but he is the most famous, I would say, like the biggest name until Lily Gladstone wins the Oscar, actor in the movie. The average person might know.
Hey, need to add though, there is a filmmaker who his era passed, and I don't think he was ever given an entirely fair shake. But Alex Cox, is also in it,
Repo Man.
Yes, but also Walker, which is for this to be, it's a lot of things, but in part, it's also an anachronistic Western, and for him, who I think directs one of the definitive anachronistic Western films in Walker.
I don't know that one.
It's really good. It's about I cannot think of the historical figure's name, but it was basically a colonizer goes to Nicaragua and I can't remember when his era was, but he was like the first like governor, I guess, but it was like appointed by America. He's like, but it has like helicopter, so it takes place in the 19th century, but it has like helicopters in it, and there's like sequences where he's just like kicking like a Coke can down a dirt path, and it's like, how'd that get there?
Yeah,
and
you're so right to bring up that aspect of Quantum Cowboys, and it's kind of funny how it plays with the rules of like when it's introducing these like anachronistic elements and timelines, because it is also playing with this idea of like viewership and observation and like how the idea
what
of,
is
like,
a memory?
Yeah, documenting something, filming it, presenting it, like locks it into place and makes it an immutable fact. Whereas anything other than that is sort of loose,
ephemeral.
Yeah, and I guess plot wise, we haven't talked about like what it's actually about. I'm just kind of giving you the vibe. What it's actually about is these two drifters who've kind of like settled in this town or kind of doing, odd jobs. They're end up shoveling manure for the mayor so they can attend a festival. And one of them gets the bright idea, wait a second, while everybody's at this festival, we can rob the town. And that happens. He robs the town, and the marshal catches him. And in running from the marshal, somebody trips him and saves his life. And the musician that's leading the festivities at the town festival gets murdered. And so it becomes about this it all kind of kicks off from that inciting incident and becomes about like, who tripped him? How did they know that he was in danger? How did
the guy that got shot die?
Yeah. Because there's
is he destined to die?
Yeah.
Is another big question. Like, did he die? But also, like, is he predestined? Like, no matter what, is he going to? Is this part of his ultimate fate, or is there a way out?
And what's the deal?
It does play with that. Yeah.
And what's the deal with David Arquette and his crony, and why won't they leave us alone?
Right.
Yeah. So
there's time travel. There's also time travel involved. I'll just say that. I'll leave it kind of open, but there is an element of which is what actually stems the alternate realities.
Right. Sure. That's important to bring up. and involves, I can't think of the actor's name, but he plays the villain in this new season of Schmigadoon. Really fun Broadway actor.
The narrator guy?
Yeah. He's like almost
so cool.
always depicted in like
Mixed media.
Stop motion.
The stop motion,
it's like
a
the
doll.
kaleidoscopic stop motion.
Yeah, it's like a doll with paper eyes and a paper mouth that moves.
Yeah.
Or like his cat is made out of a collage. Like that the most surreal, trippy animation is saved for like this Time Authority type setup.
So a couple of things that me and Daniel gleaned from our Q&A. Number one, you guys had a question that you wanted to get asked. Now, here's the thing. She answered it in our Q&A, not from me, though. Like someone else actually asked, but also she'd already kind of touched on it.
Nice.
But they basically, the way they did it was they didn't even know, they mostly did not know when they were shooting scenes in stop motion, like some form of animation versus live action until they got on the set. And they're like, oh, we got to the set, there's green screens. I guess that means we're going to be doing an animated sequence today. Okay. And they had to, and they basically, anytime they were doing animated, they would try to give bigger performances for the animation purposes of animation. Right. But it wasn't like, because we were, because, I'm all thinking, oh, they storyboarded this meticulously. Everyone knew, no. The actors just kind of went with it. I mean, they knew the premise, they knew what they wanted to do, but it wasn't like today you're doing stop motion reality. Today you're doing rotoscope. It's like, all right. We're using real props. Okay, so I guess this is a real scene.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Which is really interesting. And kind of hearing like how they went bigger, I thought was really cool. So you guys had mentioned that was a question you had coming out of the Q&A that did get asked in the second one.
Yeah, we were backed up in our, because you guys were at the MOA, which had a little bit more time. Yeah. We were at Harkins, and there was a screening like right after ours. Yeah. So Sunrise got a couple of really good questions out, and I mean, as you already mentioned, Lily is such a thoughtful question answerer. Yeah. Like, we'll answer 5 questions you didn't think to ask in the answering of one of your questions. And I love that kind of stuff. I love somebody that's like, well, I'll give you an answer, but it's going to have a lot of context.
Right. But she was also really humble and like being totally. She's like, oh, this is just my take on what I think is happening here. And she's clearly thought quite a lot about all of these things. And that's just really impressive. This isn't just a job. She shows up. She clearly really has a passion and affinity, which leads me to the other tidbit I wanted to mention that we got from our Q&A that I guess after talking to you later, she didn't talk about this part. This is the first part of a planned trilogy. Yeah. Well, actually, antilogy is what they call it, but it's technically 3 movies, but they're saying antilogy because she's like, the implication with the antilogy is that perhaps what you see in the next movie or the third movie might contradict what you just saw in this movie.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
I can't wait until all 3 of them are out and I spend like a week just obsessing over this.
Well, and I don't think this film
watching them in different orders.
Yes.
Yeah. I think this is also a film that does not have distribution yet, as far as I know.
No, it doesn't.
Correct.
Yeah. So we got to be out here beating the drum for Fancy Dance and Quantum Cowboys.
Seriously,
Quantum Cowboys.
Come Killers of the Flower Moon season.
Come on, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, someone pick it up. I mean, it's so
for
good.
God's sake, you've got the money. You're not paying writers right now. Can we just?
Yeah. Ever.
I've been paying writers for the last 15 years.
You gotta get some programming back on your streaming services somehow. So just seriously. But because it also sounded like the way Lily Gladstone was talking about on stage was that like her and David Arquette and the folks making it really want to make it happen.
Yeah,
so
nice.
That's good news for us.
It's so interesting. We talked about you talked about Fancy Dance, sort of an indigenous issues film. And we haven't gotten into Quantum Cowboys and sort of its relationship to the Western genre and like sort of the inherent questions of colonialism like present in that genre. And the way Quantum Cowboys like takes a new approach at sort of those issues within the Western genre is really clever. I don't want to, spoil too much because it kind of is a big part of the plot and a part of like the film's like, emotional underpinnings, but really, really kind of clever interrogation of like how we tell Western stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the Q&A camp that their approach was they wanted to tell a Western story as it was actually probably in the Old West. Like again, this was her kind of commentary on it was Westerns are not any sort of reflection of the actual Old West.
Yeah.
And their approach with this story was, hey, let's try to set it in the real Old West or closer to the old real West than you see in the movies. So, Daniel, you've been quiet about Quantum Cowboys. Thoughts? Anything we missed?
No, I do think it's a movie I'm still trying to wrap my head around, and I think we'll just be doing that indefinitely. I think that's the fun and the joy. of the film itself. But I think just the both the mix, it's ultimately like kind of a like inherently what's happening within it is like a relatively quaint, straightforward story that gets deconstructed to such an extent that it kind of breathes new life into it. But I'm also, again, I just cannot reiterate how excited I am to see both David Arquette and Alex Cox. I'm like, if you're going to put those two in a film, I'm just going to be there. It's like, that's, but at the same time, it just feels so oddly appropriate. I don't think it's a coincidence that like Alex Cox is in it and his adjacency to this kind of again, it is a Western film. And that's the other thing. It is more Western than, most Westerns we see. And
it's more like historical Western, not genre Western.
It is. And it's like, I love it when Lily, in our Q&A, she mentioned how like, okay, so here's like a lot of people's idea of a Western to the point where they call something like Killers of the Flower Moon Scorsese Western, even though it isn't. She described it as American tragedy.
Yeah, she actually was citing, she specifically was citing the Rolling Stone review. She's like, I like how they talked about that movie.
Yes. But at the same time, when you have, Clint Eastwood in Spain, filmed by an Italian director, with, again, somebody else scoring it and all these elements that are like, again, and I'm saying that to say I love the Dollars trilogy. I think it's, well, at least Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think those are like really fun, good movies, but they're not an accurate depiction of the West in any capacity. And to have this to also simultaneously be this, multiverse hopping, this time traveling film, and to still get the West more right is just really impressive. To speak competently about it, I'm going to need quite a bit more time, but from what I just like observed in the experience itself. The other thing is like so many multiverse films, even Everything Everywhere All at Once to some extent. And then really just seeing Across the Spider-Verse very recently. I know people generally like that film, but I think for like Quantum Cowboys to not feel like it didn't feel like it was intentionally disorienting at times, but it didn't feel like outright disorienting. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like it felt like very deliberate and intentional.
Sure. And speaking of this cliffhanger question, we've talked about how this film announces at the end that like they want to make more. A closed loop. You leave the film like feeling, like if they don't get to make more, fine, whatever.
Yes.
Right. It unlike Across the Spider-Verse, for example, I don't think these are apples to apples whatsoever. But if you're just talking about in terms of a satisfying way to break apart a series of movies, this does it in a place where I still really wanted more. There's still lots of unanswered questions, but if you only got this one movie, you would feel satisfied, right? Versus the other movie we just talked about, where you're like, no, you kind of have to have
by
the next one for this to
actually
be good.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I mean, it works and it does, but like sometimes I feel like I can't help but feel like that's a little bit of a weakness, even if the other film is coming.
Yeah. We can talk shit on Spider-Verse after this.
It's allowed. We're adults.
Yeah.
Don't talk shit.
In fact,
it's amazing.
If you were an adult, you should probably be talking more shit about the children's film. Just think harder.
Wow, Dalton.
I agree.
I got takes on it. Yeah, I was not mad at this movie.
You got it. That's right. Okay, we're gonna have to save this for off mic for a second. Yeah, because we did an entire 2.5 hour long.
I'm sure you did.
Hey, it wasn't 5 stars across the board, and it honestly, almost all the problems were almost exclusively to the way they ended it. But let's talk about documentaries a little bit. Let's move on because there's a lot of great documentaries. I think they stand out. This year, I didn't get to see as many as I wanted, but there were some really strong ones. So real quick, I'll go around the table. And Drew, I'll start with you. What was perhaps your favorite documentary that you saw from this year?
I know we're going to talk about A We Will Speak, so I'm going to mention Writing Legacy first, nice. I think. Really good documentary about Black Rodeo here in Oklahoma. Really well shot. Really fascinating people featured in it. I just thought it was beautiful, and I enjoyed learning. You kind of mentioned like not knowing a lot about that world. I have had friends who recently, like she traveled up from Dallas to photograph Black cowboys here, and just don't really know a lot about it. So I thought that film was a really good window into that world and made me want to be more involved in it and just and see actual rodeos here.
So I interviewed the Keon Taylor on the podcast, and man, I probably sounded like such a dumbass. I was like, because I was with you, I'm like, I don't know anything about rodeos, normal rodeos, let alone black rodeos, let alone the fact that the documentary, and maybe you can elaborate, but my understanding is it's not just about black rodeos, it's digging into like the history of the black cowboy as it relates to rodeos. A group that is like so wildly underrepresented that the only movie I could come up with about black cowboys was The Harder They Fall, which only came out just 2 years ago.
Yeah. They do get into that. They get into the history and how it's just been overlooked, and they've just been here forever, and it's just nobody has put an eye on them, at least in the wider world. And I think that's one reason that this is a really important film, and that I hope more people get to see it.
Yeah. Again, I don't think that one has distribution. I really hope it gets picked up, though. Again,
it should.
It's a great documentary, very educational, and first film for Keanu Taylor. Yeah, it's like crazy impressive first film.
Yeah, and I just want to add, damn, does that film have some cool montages in it?
Oh yeah,
cool writing montages.
Oh
so yeah, if anything, see it for all the history of the education too, but like really that
they make it look good. It's not just a boring like, and here's the history of this and how this relates, and here's some B-roll of a regular rodeo. They like get in it, man.
Yes.
Yeah. So great shout out. Writing legacy. We'll go around the table. Dalton. I know documentaries not your thing. Did you catch any this year?
I was unfortunately not able to catch any feature-length docs, but I caught a couple of short docs in some of the blocks that I saw. And the one I want to shout out is First Down, which was part of the Proud Family programming that Lauren Chapman put together. These were sort of like queer-centric family stories, or family-friendly queer stories, I guess is how you could frame it. And First Down is about an all-girls football team whose coach is a trans man, and it's just so sweet. And especially at a time, I mean, like deadCenter really took seriously that this fest takes place during Pride. At least that was the vibe that I got from the programming. You know, they really kind of tried to make that especially closing night movies, you know, being bottoms and fancy dance, right? Like, they really tried to ingrain that into the DNA of the fest. And at a time when like we have an internal migration crisis in this country because of bigoted legislation. To remind people like, no. Trans people are out here raising your fucking kids and trying to like instill them with like confidence and virtues and like make them feel like they can accomplish something in the world. Really cool doc. And kudos to them for getting that championship. I'll spoil the end of the doc. Yeah.
All right.
What?
It has a happy ending. Okay.
They lose and then win. It's great.
It's Rocky 1 and 2 all in one.
Yeah, it's Rocky 1 and 2 all at once in a postscript. Yeah, and it's just a really nice like short like 10-15 minute doc about, you know, just trying to like help kids who feel kind of left out of extracurricular activities and haven't really found a home. And it's really solid.
Just want to take a moment. You mentioned LaRon, and don't worry, I'll brag on him on air when he's actually at this table. But just want to say, really proud of this guy. I feel like there are a few humans out there that are like more built to program a festival or programming block than him, because he has a lot of the know-how from his filmmaking, but he watches so much stuff that he's got the film critic brain, and he's just a socialite, so he knows tons of people. And like all three of those kind of combine together for a guy who just knows how to build like some really, like he tells a story with the programming, right? It's not just like, oh, here's a bunch of queer shorts that we're going to throw together into a blender. No, it's like there's a pacing to how he builds it out. Anyway, just want to say really proud of him and LaRon, man. I'm going to say this again to your face, but congratulations. You're doing a huge service to deadCenter by being Pride programmer, but just even being a part of our community. So anyway, hats off there.
I didn't know we were going to talk about some of the shorts blocks here in a little bit, but I'll shout out Paris Burse, who I met through Alex this weekend.
Yeah.
Who co-programmed, I should say. I forget who their co-programmer's name, but they co-programmed the Sinful Cinema shorts and the comedy shorts with their co-programmer. And yes, same with both of those blocks. Just
all
like
hitters.
An excellent vibe, right? Like it just like
really well curated.
Yeah, it kind of takes you through a mood and like the stories kind of build on each other almost. Yeah, really great programming this year for the short blocks. It's just really impeccable stuff.
I think I'll go about the shorts too, and we have a dedicated short section. But I just like, I feel like they get, and it sounds like so cliche because I say it every year, but like every year that I watch shorts, I'm like, damn, these feel like they're getting better. The bar of quality just gets higher.
It's a chance to see somebody really be like, let me make a damn movie.
Right.
You really see somebody putting it all out there, and it's really incredible work.
Daniel Bokemper, what was your favorite documentary?
I have my favorite, but can I just mention my like runner up real quick?
Yeah.
So Time Bomb Y2K. It is a documentary made completely of archival footage from like 1993 to basically January 2nd, 2000.
Great.
And yeah,
great time in America.
Well, yes. It is really just like I love going on to like YouTube and going down the rabbit hole of now obsolete technology and all the great things that people make about that, primarily using archival footage. This film does the same thing without even narration. It just creates it genuinely like recaptures that Y2K paranoia and that hysteria. It doesn't try to create a false sense of like, oh, like we didn't completely solve this by early 99 and like there wasn't really anything to worry about. It still plays into like how, despite that, the alarm that was raised to get all of these legacy systems capable of turning 19s into 20s, it's like a lot more than that, because it's also how that alarm became a paranoia and a hysteria that they could not unwind. So despite how many people you had throughout almost the entirety of 1999 screaming at broadcasters that this is no longer an issue, please,
we have fixed it.
Yes, quit selling your homes and trying to live off the grid, but not living off the grid, just like pseudo off the grid. Like, I don't, that's the other thing too, is it's like you go through a lot of people who clearly did not put much, they put a lot of thought into it, but it was like more of like a guttural reaction to upheave their entire lives just for it to be for nothing ultimately. And there's a little bit of Schadenfreude in that, but like at the same time, I think it does get that sense and get how dangerous that can become. And so it kind of shifts from being about Y2K to being about this idea of, grabbing something that scares you and going with it to an extreme to where it just far supersedes what's actually happening. So that one's really good. I also want to mention, because we may not be able to talk about it too much, is one of the opening films, Black Barbie, a documentary.
Yeah, tell us about that. You just so you have a review up for it on the Cinematropolis.com. And by the time listeners hear this, we have an interview with the director also up on the podcast feed.
Yes, Gary Davis. And I do want to say just both that and two pieces on Time Bomb Y2K and Black Barbie. But this film, it's just, I think, necessary viewing for anyone, including myself, who is excited and going to go see Greta Gerwig's Barbie. This film isn't something that is, and that's not to say you shouldn't see that film, but I suspect that film, being a major studio film, is not going to talk about the things that this documentary talks about, specifically the existence of a Black Barbie. And while there is still a prominent, I think they call her Barbie Brooklyn, maybe, is like the current like Black Barbie that Mattel has. It's how like quickly that idea of representation has kind of faded, and now it's become this very clinical, very like corporate, like
DEI,
and it's
check
like
the boxes.
And this film features an interview with Mattel's DEI, their like lead director of that, and he's just not getting it. Like, it's kind of funny to see how like detached and disconnected, and then when you find out that the person who created it was a white dude that made the 40th anniversary Black Barbie like doll line, and it gets into that, and it's part a living museum that's really nice, but then the second part of the film is just a genuine and really tough conversation about how necessary it is for even the toys we play with as children to reflect reality and to reflect us and to represent what life really is. Because if you don't, you suddenly have, Black children, especially. There's a segment with a child psychologist who she is, just setting a bunch of Barbies, a bunch of different variants of Barbies with a bunch of different skin tones, and like, which ones do you gravitate towards? And unfortunately, a lot of kids go towards the white, pristine Barbies even now in, 2021, 2022, when this was filmed. And it just talked about how necessary it is for that representation and how those toys really shape us, and they're not superficial. They're not, toys are a lot more than just toys. They are defining experiences, and I think it just captures that so well. But it's also really fun.
Well, I think, it's
that's the other thing.
That's the other thing. I think it's the same thing happened in my interview where like you're talking about these really heavy topics, but it's like but the movie's super funny.
Yes,
it's like super funny.
Yes,
the interview. So that's the other thing I want to mention. I really enjoyed about Black Barbie was they get some killer interviews. Like, this is as good an interview you can get about Black Barbie as possible. So they actually got the person who designed Black Barbie, Kitty Black Perkins, as an interview in the movie. Dang. So like the person who like did the very first Black Barbie designed it, and essentially, again, the director, I think it's oh man, I got her name wrong so many times. I'm pretty sure it's Legeria Davis.
Legeria Davis.
And her aunt, who she lived when she moved to LA that she lived with, happened to work on the line at Mattel way back in the day, and then moved up the ladder basically as one of the first women of color to kind of move from the line to the offices. So she had like crazy connections to everyone at Mattel that no longer at Mattel, but she's able to get all these like really crazy, impressive interviews. And not only are they have these wild insights about all the processes and how decisions were made and why they were made. Man, they are so funny.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Black Barbie. I'm not sure if that one has distribution yet or not, but I sure hope it does. It should. I can't wait to tell people. I think people should absolutely watch it before they watch Barbie, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so thrilled that I watched this because it's really going to color how I watch Barbie. I don't know if it's going to make me like the movie more or less, but it's just a new perspective to think about. Like, how are they handling representation in the Barbie movie? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Joe, you had the chance to interview the co-director of the Best Oklahoma Feature Film winner. That is a film that was selected by the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle. We Will Speak. Can you tell me a little bit more about the film and maybe some of the takeaways you had from the conversation with the director?
Yeah, this is another one that I would classify as like quote unquote an important film, just because it's so unique to not only Oklahoma, but Indigenous history and something that's very, very current and now and very, again, important. So I spoke with Michael McDermott, who was super nice via email and direct message. So learned a lot from him, even more than I learned from the film. And the film itself is about Cherokee tribes' efforts to save their language, which is literally at risk of extinction. I looked it up on the Cherokee Nation website, and they say that right now there's an estimated 2,000 first language Cherokee speakers, with several thousand more like proficient or learning. But that's not that much. It's actually
a lot of them, at least the way the documentary tells us, a lot of them are kind of in the sunset years of their life.
Aging. Yeah. Yes. A lot of like grandparents and elders. Yes. So especially they talk about it in the film during the pandemic, they were really at risk of just like losing all of it, losing the language, losing the syllabary, all of that. So, and the language itself is very, very difficult to learn, especially if English is your first language. It's a class 4 language is how it's classified, which is up there with like Arabic and Chinese. And wow. Yeah. So, again, I just think it's a really important film, a really fascinating film, a really emotional film. And I think that was one thing that the film does really well, is that and this is one thing that we talked about, is they find individuals who have ties to their communities, ties to their relatives. He mentions that one of his favorite scenes is the film is with this artist and her grandparents, and they're speaking Cherokee and just crying together because they're all so emotional. So they do a really good job of finding those individuals and finding ways to illustrate the emotional needs and immediacy of the story, while also peppering in like, here's the historical importance of this. Going back to not only here in Oklahoma, but like North Carolina, and sort of a little bit of tribal politics as well. So it's a really good, really immediate story. They have this one individual who is in a class, so they see her in like her Zoom classes, her graduation, and they give her a camera at one point. She goes to like the tribal birthplace of Cherokee in North Carolina, and she's just like recording herself, and it's very like raw and emotional. And like I said, Michael was just so kind to answer all those questions. They ended up having like Wes Studi come on as a producer later on in the process. They started the film in 2019, I think he said. So it's another one that they spent a really long time on. I also spoke very briefly with one of the producers, Laura Heberton, I think her name is. Yeah. And again, super nice. Just everyone involved with the project seemed so grounded, so kind, so proud of their work, which in turn made me proud of it, and just proud that we were able to showcase it here at the fest too. So yeah, passion education, tribal history. I love it all.
Yeah, really moving documentary, important. One thing that was interesting, they highlighted, this is more towards the end of the film, in which they have basically, I think there's a lot, they interview a lot of people, but I want to say there's 2, maybe 3 main subject POV characters they're following.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, we learn that like at least 1 or if not 2 of them are kind of, they're figuring out how to make uniquely Cherokee art. Like they're artists,
Mm-hmm.
but they hadn't really thought about it or produced necessarily through the lens of, I'm preserving our culture. I'm trying to amplify. They have one guy who's a musician
Mm-hmm.
and then a woman who is painting. Although, fun fact, this was funny. So I was at the screening. My fiance Lauren went. She didn't know much about the movie. I just said, hey, I got to go see this. It's going to win an award. I got to present. You want to come? And she's like, yeah. And we actually have some of her artwork in our house somewhere.
What?
I don't even know which. Yeah. She was like, she leaned over. She's like, I know who this is. I've met her before. The woman. I was like, really? And she's like, oh yeah, we have a mutual friend. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have some art hanging in our house. And I was like, no way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when we went and talked to them after the movie, they recognized each other. I was like, this is bizarre. We just watched a documentary following this person, but
That's awesome.
but I think the thing that was moving to me about that, I just have to say, like the role art plays in preservation. It's not, yes, it's about the language, but also the art and sort of the language informs the art. The art also informs how people remember the language.
Yeah.
The same woman also has to paint, and they have a school that they've kind of like renovated, dedicated to preservation language. She has to like paint the letters on the wall, and that's actually like a thing they come back to a few different times throughout the movie. Is kind of like a little touch point.
Yeah, I guess that's how they met her, or she got involved, Kelly. They had hired her to paint that mural, and then through her passion and her art, they were just like, come on, be a producer and be a focus of the film too. So that was like the impetus for her involvement.
And so cool. I check it out. Again, West Studi, if you watch a lot of movies and you've seen an indigenous person in a movie, it's probably West Studi. If it's, especially with like the 90s and early aughts, it was probably West Studi, or he's one of the most famous indigenous actors alive. House of Cards, Dances with Wolves,
Geronimo, right?
Say that again.
Geronimo.
Was he in Geronimo? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hostiles.
Hostiles is so good. He was in
Arthur hates that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
We got an episode on it. You should check it out.
I need to go hang out. I need to listen to that. Then maybe.
We really dig into that one. Speaking of like indigenous issues in westerns, we really
that's
debated about what that one's doing.
That's fair, because I was not watching it with that lens at the time.
Yeah.
And
movie.
I can see how. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, a lot of sidebars happening here. We'll get back to it. Anyway, we will speak. It ended up taking home best Oklahoma feature again, and I think that's rightfully deserved. It was a really tough contest. I can just say I won't specify I won't say the specifics, but I can just say it was very, very close. But I do think amongst the voters, sort of you said this is important. That was kind of amongst the people who voted, who I talked to, that was kind of I had to pick between this movie and that movie. This one seems like it's really important.
Yeah.
So that's why it ended up, I think, taking home. And I hope I'm glad to see it's actually touring a number of other film festivals. So again, look it up. We Will Speak. I think it's already got another film festival on it for this next weekend. So yeah, check it out. Hey, real quickly, we're running way longer than anticipated. Surprising day one.
No big deal.
No big deal. You guys are awesome. Short films. Do we want to talk about the short film?
We have to, because I spent so much time at them. I was going to say.
We got to talk about at least a few of them.
All right, Alex, I'll throw it to you. Short films. What was your favorite block?
I think that it's actually a toss-up between the comedy block and the sinful cinema block. Yeah. I thought both of those blocks were pretty much all heaters, and I was really prepared to be a comedy hater. I went in with my critics glasses on, but I was really blown away.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So when the comedian likes the comedy block, there's some magic in there.
There really was some incredible stuff. The highlight of the comedy,
you know which one I'll talk about. I'll talk about go first, Dustin's. Yeah, I'll talk about Family Circus, which was Dustin's favorite, which has got Michael Ironside as like the scariest cop ever, and it's like, it's tense funny.
Yeah,
it's very Cohen's funny.
Okay,
and then my personal favorite, we all liked that one a lot. Is really good one to close out on. My personal favorite was Wheel. the Taya Lux one. And not just because I got to meet her and be starstruck, and
she's so cool.
She's very nice. But had a thoughtful answer to my question about like the button on the short, and the really good answer she gave was basically like, you have to find the emotional through line of the short, because then it's just a sketch.
Otherwise, it's just a sketch, which blew me away.
Yeah, I know, it's something we thought about a lot this weekend. But yeah, this idea that you like, it's a short film, it's not a sketch, and like you have to find a way to like close that loop and give a real like definitive ending to the emotional arc of the thing. And just kind of talking about her and her co-star, because she's the director and co-star on Wheel, and the listener just talked about her and her co-star's improv background and kind of that looseness to find what the story is even about. I just really kind of was interested in their process, and again, like super funny. But funny in a way that it resonates with me, where it's just like a comedy of manners type stuff, which is like people not knowing how to interact, or like specifically in this short, it's a person trying to submit their Wheel of Fortune tape, and their friend's a casting director, and they just can't get comfortable on camera.
Yeah,
she just has no.
That's kind of
naturalism on camera.
That's amazing.
It's such
so
a
funny.
real thing for my day job. Not to get too much in the weeds, but we often have to both pre-screen people and then interview them who have never been on camera, and they may give like an incredible pre-interview, or the person who's recommending them will like say how excellent they are and how like on paper perfect for the purpose of what we're trying to shoot. And then when you get there and they just cannot hold it together, or they just cannot seem to like say the thing that you're about that everyone recommended you, and they just can't get there. It's just never. It's just like they're just circling it, and then they get close, and then they like shoot far back, and it's like one step forward, two steps back. And I think God, that film just captured that.
Wheel really does that exact. Yeah,
Wheel's
plays that in a really funny way. So those are the two standouts for me. But ones I know. Besides for the ones I know, Alex is going to mention.
Yeah, I'm about to talk about two other ones. We'll start with the other one that's in the two comedic actors trusting each other genre, like Wheel, which was Call Me Mommy. Call Me Mommy was unbelievable. I really, really loved it. It's about a young actor who gets hired to play a woman's daughter from infancy to adulthood over the course of like a couple of days to get this woman ready for parenthood, basically. It's like a pregnant woman hires her, and it's like, call me mommy, we'll do the whole thing. And it's the most intense pregnant woman in the world. She's just like never blinks.
So stern. No sense of humor.
So funny. Just really, really funny. And they bring it to a really good emotional crescendo at the end that really hits.
Yeah.
And then the final, like the button on the whole thing is roll on the floor funny.
Dynamite. Yeah.
Is so the last thing that happens is so good. I really, really recommend that short. And then the other one I want to talk about is Mud and Gold, or Gold and Mud.
I think it's Gold and Mud.
Gold and Mud by Ana Fabrega, who is someone who I had been familiar with some of her work already, and it has some of the people whose work I'm familiar with. Not Claire O'Kane, but
Joe Firestone.
Joe Firestone is in it. Brett Davis is in it, and it's about a doctor living her entire life. And so it's just like scenes from her whole life into the future. Like it shows her on her death. It shows her like starting in her like 20s as a doctor and dating and then getting into relationships and getting out of relationships and just like moments every like 5 or 10 years basically throughout her life.
Getting married, getting divorced, going on the roller coaster trip they planned by herself, getting married again, burying her second wife. Like
it's
just
so good. It's so good.
So and it's like mostly shot in close-ups on her.
It's only her face.
I say mostly. Yeah, it is pretty much
it's entirely
just
her face with other people's like bodies, like, you know, I don't know the term. It's shot like over other people's shoulders.
Which block was this in?
Comedy shorts.
Comedy shorts.
This is a comedy?
It's so fucking funny. It's really funny.
That's fucking right. There's a line like in the very beginning where she's like interviewing a patient and she's like, do you have any medicine allergies? And he's like, I'm allergic to peanuts. She's like, peanuts isn't a medicine. Like, just like a classic little bit of business.
Well, and it's just like when she's going to like, you go through her life and like, she's continuing to treat patients. And then there's a point where she like pulls out like a fully robotic, like prosthetic. And she's like, suddenly like, servicing that. And
because it goes into the future.
Yes. And I will say that one, that is the only film, because like every time you see like the deadCenter bumper and stuff, you like see it and you're like, oh, I know that movie. I saw that movie. That's cool. That's cool. That one in the roller coaster scene where she is like bawling her eyes out on the roller coaster. That kind of like mired the bumper, because then I saw that. I'm like, oh, that's actually painful. Like that's not this, but yeah, no, it's such a great one too.
It's so funny. Her weeping on the roller coaster is one of the funniest things.
Just screaming at her ex.
It's so good.
It's really good.
I want to talk about the one from Sinful Cinema that I really, really liked, which was, because I know which one you're going to talk about. I want to talk about Campground.
Campfire.
Campfire?
I thought it was Campground. Thank you.
Campfire is the story of a man who, it's not clear if he's closeted. He talks to his daughter and never mentions where he's going. So he clearly like has a kid, had a family, you know. But he goes to a like gay men's campground. That's who it's for, and it's been that way since the 80s. And he's there on a mission to find a man that he spent like a special summer with as a youth, where he like first found. Yeah,
he like worked on this guy was like a
he was like a farmhand on his
family's
farm.
ranch. Yeah,
insane.
So
I mean,
insane.
One of the most romantic things possible is to fuck a farmhand.
Yeah, it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah. And so he shows up to this, and it's about him looking for this guy and also slowly becoming more comfortable with himself as a gay man.
Yeah.
And he's like a very like,
he's kind of like you'd mistake him for a good old boy.
He's like an older guy, broom handled mustache, built like a trucker, you know. Okay. He's wearing like camo. He's got like a full like camp set. He's like great at camping.
He's great at camping.
And it really like, it's really emotional and really, it's a perfect short.
It's really great stuff.
It's really,
perfect
really
short.
great stuff.
Alex is taking all of my picks. So
Sorry,
I feel like, oh no, you're good. You're good. I love it. But I do want to add, it's also a documentary.
Yes.
It is a hybrid
That's
documentary, and it does it so seamlessly and so well. And it has like 3 little mini docs in it at the same time about the campground itself, about these famous pair of nude walkers, that this couple that have been walking the campground naked, and like the way it just like integrates reality. Yes. I've seen a few hybrid like documentary narratives, but nothing quite as like seamless as this one and so natural as this one. So
the only thing I've seen that's even close is Tag, which is not nearly as good.
It's been a while.
Not the movie with Jason Bateman and Johnny
that's
Renner.
the one he means.
Oh, that's
we
what
like
I mean.
Tag.
Yeah.
The Tag defenders have
I'm
logged
actually
on.
a Tag liker. Yeah. I did watch it on mushrooms. I want that to be clear. So I'm a little biased. I think
Probably adds a lot of
That's
value.
a big
it did add a lot of value. Yeah.
So Daniel, any other shorts you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, well, I know I do not want to take away Dalton's thunder.
Thank you.
I'm going to say, just as a preface, Crush the Wrestler is one that was in the Cineful Cinema shorts that is great. But I'll let Dalton explain that one, because the other one that I think I mentioned Hardboiled at the top, and specifically the 10-year stop motion animation project that could have been in comedy shorts, but I think out of necessity by its length, because it's probably the longest short of the festival, I would guess. I think it was like 28, 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's pretty long.
Yeah, and it's a spoof of the police procedural, but everything's food and just the attention to detail, but also just how like some of the subtleties in it. The filmmaker brought this up, and it was something that I didn't realize until the very end of the shot. And I was like, oh, I wish I saw that sooner. It was like, there's like things where like someone's driving a motorcycle and you get their first person view and their motorcycle has fucking wings on it. So it starts to like fly. This pork chop who has like a little perugula for a mustache is like flying this motorcycle.
No nuts.
And there's 3 gauges on the motorcycle. There's the speed, and then it has the altitude, and in the top, like the bottom right, the smallest gauge is machismo, and it's just like going off the rails. It's so good, and it's just like so funny, and it's like more immersive. Honestly, like I want to I don't want to like try and compare it because it's a little incomparable, but like when I think of like BoJack Horseman, I do enjoy that show a lot, but like this film like got you immersed in that universe and got you to accept that like everything is food.
Nice.
Faster than BoJack Horseman did it.
Fascinating.
And I think that's really impressive. At the same time, yes, this was a 10-year project, and it shows like but in the best ways possible. And then I want to mention the one film that actually scared me in the sinful cinema block, at least slightly, was I'm trying to think of the director's name. Oh, I have it on here somewhere. Joshua Amar and Anaconda. And it's basically a film about paranoia. A college student.
So wait, it's called Anaconda.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the movie with John Voight.
Yes. No. No. There are no actual snakes in this.
Wait,
movie.
This was in Sinful Cinema?
Yeah.
Or
not Sinful. Excuse me. Midnight Shorts. My
I was
apologies.
gonna say.
Midnight Shorts.
Wait a second.
Some of them there is some crossover.
Okay.
I not films that are repeated, but I felt like this one could have.
Gotcha,
Short
I gotcha.
And Sinful Cinema, excuse me, no. Midnight Shorts. And it was the closer of Midnight Shorts. And about a college student who he's on like an online, like basically like whatever the modern chat roulette is. And, doing what you do on there sometimes and camming. And he basically gets convinced that he's been like catfished and that somebody has like been able to infiltrate his life. And it just runs through very quick vignettes of how his paranoia manifests. Cool. And he's like, oh, did this get uploaded to did a video of me get uploaded to Pornhub? Does this person know who I am and is stalking me?
Oh my gosh, it's Beau is Afraid, but a different version.
It is a little, and it's a bit different, but it's so good. And I think just accomplishes a lot in a really short amount of time. And it almost like feels like akin to like Watcher a little bit, but with a man at the center of it, which is I think a hard vibe to hit. So I think that's where it's like, I don't know. I just think it's fairly powerful for how short it is. But yeah, that was
Anaconda.
my experience.
Sounds interesting.
And again, I'll wait for Dalton to talk about Crush the Wrestler.
All right. Well, Dalton, now that Daniel's talked about that wrestler short film, you want to talk about it?
I mean, I want to big up Sinful Cinema Shorts as a whole. This is only the
Yeah.
second year they've done this block, and it's just, I mean, we spend a lot of time over on Good Trash, like lamenting the death of human sexuality in American film.
Yeah.
And like this block of shorts is just like so about it, man. Like it's, and so many different like nuances of sexuality and with empathy, with comedy, with every like lens you could think of. The shorts in this block like kind of tackle this. I know you talked to Jen Harris, who did She's Clean. That's a really funny one. That's also
I really loved that one.
Yeah, I know we all are big fans of that one, so I wanted to shout it out.
It's great. I spent most of the interview that was supposed to be a 10-minute interview for like 20 minutes. We were just talking about, why don't we just talk about sex like it's a normal thing that people do all the time? That was the whole interview. Yeah. And that was the short. It's like, hey, it's cool for middle-aged women to have sex because that's what, but like, it's a human condition.
Still women and they're still adults.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, it's part of the human condition. Like, why don't we just normalize it? Anyway, that was the interview.
And that's like a really great blend of comedy and drama. Alex and I both like Scotty's Vag a lot, which is like this college short about a sorority and like a little trying to find her big and sort of that fraught relationship dynamic and sort of like jealousy, possessiveness, but like ambition and desire, all like kind of like how this cocktail that like all is just like sloshing together. But my favorite is probably Crush the Wrestler, which is one of the docs in the Sinful Cinema shorts, and it's about this dude who's been a wrestler since he was in high school, and grew up Catholic and is a gay man, and like those three aspects of his identity like kind of collide, and he became this man, Crush the Wrestler. He creates fetish content, and it started out just like selling used wrestling singlets that he would model photos for, and then turned into him making these wrestling videos that are not like hypersexual. But he's like, people get off to these, and that's fine.
It's allowed.
Yeah, he's like not a cop about it. He's like, it's not like the tickling documentary where like, this isn't porn, okay?
Right.
It's not like that. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Check off if you want. I'm cool. I'm just making my stuff. But do whatever you got to do, man.
Yeah, but it's just like, I don't know. It's a really great intersection of just like gay men's sexuality or just like male sexuality in general, because like it's it's kind of, I don't know. A lot of people could be into Crush's content, and I wouldn't limit who could be into it. But it's also like the eroticism of martial arts, basically, is what it gets into, and that like really appeals to me. Like
that's a Dalton subject.
Yeah, it checks a lot of boxes for me. So I'm just like really interested, and he's just an interesting guy who's like really thoughtful about what he makes and like is a real artist.
Yes,
like dude is a real artist and like takes what he does seriously, and just loves wrestling.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Tickle because that's what this short film captures so much. Is like this is a form of art. It's not.
Yeah, it's a lot like Tickled, and unlike Tickled, there's no shame.
Yes,
it's somebody who is like unabashedly living their truest life and having a great time.
God, how liberating it is to even just to watch that. It just feels
I want to go wrestle somebody right now.
Yeah. Let's go, dog. Come on.
Just don't do it on this table.
This table, a lot of expensive equipment right here. Yeah.
Roll around in the yard.
Yeah, front yard's totally open though. I'll video it.
Okay.
Joe Light, did you have any short? Do you want to wrestle? Did you have any shorts?
Oh yeah, I'll wrestle. I want to just sidebar and say like I love short films so much. Like this conversation makes me so excited just because I love that realm. I love the creativity. Further sidebar, I talked to an AFI filmmaker earlier this week. Her name is Julia Ponce Diaz. She's not involved with deadCenter, but I just want to shout her out because she's worked exclusively in short film right now. And one of the questions I was like, what do you like about short film? And she just was like, I hate short film. She was just like, it's so hard. Like, it's so hard to make a short film. So to hear about all these amazing things that these filmmakers have done, it's just so inspiring. It makes me excited. I caught the series shorts block, and one that I will just shout out was called Hangman. It was such a pleasant surprise because I went into that block fairly blind, and that one stars people that really surprised me. Annabeth Gish, who's in like Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, I love
Midnight
Annabeth
Mass.
Gish.
Yes, so good. And so I was like, immediately one of my crushes on screen. But then they show up at this house in the middle of nowhere in Texas, and Peter Stormare is there playing a Texan.
I want to watch that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
And you don't really know what's going on, and they go into the house. It's her and another woman, and they're videotaping everything, and you start to learn that Annabeth Gish is this professor or doctor studying murder and death. And they're there because he is an executioner. So they're interviewing him about, sending people to the electric chair or doing lethal injections. And the setting is very weird and the conversation is very tense. And he has like this lizard that he pulls out and is like on his shoulder the whole time. And it was just a really tight, tense little short that, again, I just felt like came out of nowhere. And I just loved it so much. Writer-director Sam Upton. We'll keep an eye out for him for sure. It was awesome. And I was just, I think, a great example of what a short can be in terms of, I again, just going back to my conversation with Julia, like we were talking about how it's so difficult because you try to do too much sometimes or make it too big or the story too complicated. And this was just like 3 people in a house having a very awkward and tense conversation. And the button on that short, again, I don't want to spoil it. It was just like so tidy, so neat, so cathartic. You don't see it coming, and I just enjoyed that short so much. So, I say if you can find Hangman, watch it.
Hangman. Make a note.
Hangman.
Joe, real quick, again, I know we're running long, so for brevity's sake, but you did have another piece that went up where you interviewed 2 of the filmmakers behind the Oki short film Call of the Void. So it was director Jack McDonald and cinematographer Todd Blankenship. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that short and maybe some of your takeaways from the interview.
Yeah, and I'll be honest that I wanted to watch that mostly because of Todd, because I worked with him at No Film School, and he's just a really cool guy and does such cool things with cinematography, and that's really reflected in this short because it's a funky little short, like slice of life, very tense moment in a religious cult. So I get buy-in there where it's like cults, very interested. So it's just like a scene happening about a very important moment in a cult. But it's lit very beautifully. They lit the heck out of that short. It's by an OU grad. I think he said he was a recent grad. So very local, very new voice. And yeah, I just knew talking to Todd, I wanted to learn more about how they actually achieved it. They shot it on like Soviet lenses that I guess he refurbished himself. So again, just a really cool filmmaker.
Badass.
And just knows what he's doing. So I was like, share your secrets, Todd. And yeah, Jack was a really cool dude too. Just like I said, very young, very excited, I think knew what he was doing in the constraints of doing like a thesis film for OU. So yeah, just very exciting to see a new young voice here in Oklahoma.
Well, again, that's another. I think the one way the shorts blocks provides a platform for people, really talented people in the state who maybe don't have the budget. They're trying to hone their skills for a feature. They can make a really badass short film. Yeah. That one had a really, as I recall, that one has a really eerie ending too. Like it really like leaves you kind of like thinking a bit, you know.
And the reason it looks so distinct too is that I think they were aiming for it to look very hellish, like hell. It I guess technically is a flashback, the bulk of it. So you see like an older man reflecting on that moment, and then you go back to the older version of that character and you don't exactly know where he is or what's going on. So yeah, open ending on that one for sure.
I like that one. So I have a confession to this group to make. I was very bad at watching short films this year, like really bad. And I hate it because all the blocks, when I looked at them, sounded so awesome. So that limits my answer here. I'm just going to give a shout out. I did watch the Okie Shorts blocks. There were, I think, 15.
You own the 22?
Huh?
Do you own the 22?
The own the 22? That was really good. Shout out to Caleb Vesley.
Yeah.
I was just trying to guess. I'm trying to like game, because I know your taste. Okay.
It was a good one, though.
Trying to game out which one you really are into.
Well, hey, I did like that one quite a bit. Also, shout out to Zachary Burns, who, again, I know he has his directorial debut with Hell Had No Fury, but he also had The Cultivation of Yield, which is a really cool documentary sort of about the making and planning for this really powerful performance at the Oklahoma Contemporary. And also, fun fact, all of the performers were outside of MOA at the opening party, so that was kind of fun. They were all handing out cards and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I saw them.
Yeah,
okay.
It was pretty neat. But yeah, really cool. I don't know, Zach, you're really good at making comedies, but, you know, pretty good documentary, too. Good times. I do want to give a shout out. So the actual winner, and I thought this was a really impressive one, the external and internal monologue of an interdependent insomniac. This is a really great self-interrogation of, masculinity.
This is in shorts too. Yeah, I missed this one. This is the one that talks about the different smells of man musk, though, right? Yep. Yeah, Dustin was telling me about this. He liked this one a lot.
Yeah, it was a really strong one. It had, not only did I think it had like a nice rhythm to it, because the idea is something we've heard before. Okay, interrogating masculinity. I feel like we've been doing that in movies since at least Fight Club. Definitely further back than that. Let's say Fight Club, 20 years, right? This one does it in a very short, succinct way. It's almost the way they edit it together. It's very almost like poetry, and they're really quick, snappy edits. And they create kind of craft together the music, the delivery of the dialogue, and the visuals all kind of come together in a really powerful way. It's not necessarily poetry, but it kind of, when you're watching it, it's got a certain rhythm where you're like, okay, I'm vibing with what's going on here, and it's also just really powerful words. So, big shout out. I think the director, writer, director, producer, Julian Felix Aronson was again. I don't know his story, but seemed like a younger talent, I think. And if he can make more stuff like this, I think he's got nowhere but up to go. Next year might have to be my shorts year, because I felt like I really missed out this year. Especially, I'm reading Daniel and Joe's recaps of these, and I'm like, man, there's some good shorts I really wish I had seen. Hey, good news though. This kind of dovetails into a good closing. Some of the shorts, not all of them, but some of them are available on the deadCenter website to pass holders, because they launched a whole virtual festival. So they didn't launch it up front like they had in the previous 2 years. Come Monday morning, you can actually access a number of the films, narrative, documentary, shorts, all on the deadcenterfilm.org website. Free to pass holders. I think you can buy virtual tickets or whatever.
Yeah, there's sadly not everything from the fest.
No, not
everything.
Is Phantom Cowboys on there?
No, but Crush the Wrestler is.
Okay, well, all right. You watch that on your own time.
Yeah, no, I was like, ooh, could I watch Fancy Dance?
Yeah, damn.
Yeah. They don't get everything. Hell Hath No Fury is on there, though.
So
I did see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some good stuff. Not everything, but if you missed it, if you missed something, you might peruse and just see if one of those films that we've talked about is on there, or if there's something you missed that you want to catch. Check that out again. deadcenterfilm.org.
Real quick, Daniel, did you like Pennies from Heaven? I didn't get to go to the midnight shorts, but I really like that short.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit too.
Yeah.
I don't understand entirely why it was in the Midnight Shorts, to be honest.
Yeah, should have been in the comedy block.
I think, but it still fit kind of well. And I also just like that chaos demon energy that the two lead twins bring.
The Meshke twins are geniuses.
Yes.
They are so good. And Sandy Honig from Three Busy Debras directed it.
Mm-hmm.
It is... So, I really like that short.
Yes, especially the ending that somehow harkens back to like the Grapes of Wrath. It's so
fucking good.
Yeah. Yes. But I did like that one.
I haven't seen that one, but I did read the synopsis for it, and it sounded baller.
It's so funny. It is so funny. Their energy is... I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Pennies from Heaven, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. All right, so I budgeted an hour for this podcast. We just hit 2 hours.
I knew Dalton was here. Okay. I've never done a podcast with him under 2.
I know.
Yeah, I've never come to Caleb's house and been here for less than 5 hours.
Listen, this is usually the light, short episode we do once a year, but there's 5 people. You are all lovely people with great thoughts and commentary. So I'm happy with it. But also, we should probably start to wrap it up. So with that said, is there anything else you all would like to say about deadCenter? Any other filmmakers you want to shout out, or any other films you want to mention or acknowledge before we wrap up?
I have a couple more things to say about Bottoms.
Please do. Oh yeah, we haven't even gotten to the Bottoms thrashing.
Yeah, it's time to talk about Bottoms. My thing is that more than like a pair, I think that it is a high school movie that takes place in Paul Verhoeven's America.
I love that.
Yeah. If you fuck with Verhoeven, Alex pointed this out. They're always saying things like, "We're gonna kick the enemy in the nuts." Oh,
Well, our enemy is going to get fucked by us. Yeah. It's all this like hyper heightened, like jingoistic, like the intersection of sex and violence, which is where America lives. Like it is very Verhoeven in that way.
Yeah, it is a bizarre movie, and I think it's like really anchored by the Ayo Debris and Rachel Sennett's like kind of fabulous two-hander energy. Like Ayo is so
sweet,
so innately likable, and Rachel Sennett is so innately evil.
It's awesome,
and they just mesh together so perfectly.
It's because my worry about the movie was that like Rachel Sennett is too hot to be convincingly a loser, but you can be a loser if you're hot if you're mean enough, and she is in the movie, and it's perfect.
Yeah. She's so mean.
It's awesome.
It's really walks right up to the line of it as mean as you can make a character without fully pushing it over the line of like them being an unlikable person.
Yeah,
really fine line, and they managed to do it pretty well.
Yeah.
I am now, when I watch Bottoms, I'm just going to headcanon that this is in Paul Verhoeven's America.
I mean,
I'm serious.
You're going to absolutely connect with this.
I feel like it's going to like up the quality, my experience rather of the movie.
It will.
Pretty greatly.
It makes me... when we started talking about that after the film, it made me want to watch it again. I'm really looking forward to catching it when it has its wide release. I think it's August.
There's so much stuff to catch on a rewatch. A lot of the announcements I missed on the first one. A lot of the posters. A lot of details.
Posters. Yeah. And like funny stuff on the chalkboards. Yeah.
Any high school movie that features football players and they literally never take off their pads. No matter the situation, no matter the context, they are in full gear.
Yeah.
And
like Master Chief.
Well, exactly. Yes. And there is a moment where, not to get too into it, but there's just one moment where one of the teachers, he's very disappointed. He's the sponsor of the fight club, and they do something that he becomes greatly disappointed in them. And it's just this short montage, but there's a moment where he like has feminism written on a chalkboard, and he just fucking crosses it out. And then under it, it's like why every U.S. president was a white man, or every U.S. president was a man, and why that should continue to be. And like, it was just such a dumb.
Marshawn Lynch is so funny.
Yes.
As their teacher.
Yes,
just like a guy going through a divorce who cannot muster a single shit about the school.
It's awesome.
It's really funny. I mean, to that point, like the awkward stage really shares a lot of DNA with this movie.
I agree.
In a weird way.
I agree.
Did you guys
didn't talk about the awkward stage?
We haven't talked about the awkward stage.
I forgot. That is, I guess that's the fifth fifth narrative we saw.
Now that's a movie about what it's like to live in America.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
So you guys, so me and Daniel have talked about it already. What'd you guys think of the awkward stage?
I like it. It's weird, and I like that about
movie
it.
For sure.
I don't know if it needs to be longer or have more plot, but it needs something to fully push me over the edge. But it's the first Choate movie that I've seen, and I was a big fan of it. I can't wait to check out 10 Killer and see their next feature. really, really curious about their career and what they continue to do, because I think there's something there.
Yeah.
I think it's a good exploration of the way people lash out and make their own meaning in a decaying system that does not care about them.
Yeah.
That is a movie about America.
Yeah. Man, when you put it that way, I was thinking through the lens of middle schoolers, but that's even more specific.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think whenever I was talking we caught this one early via the OFCC screeners as well. And I really like the vibes, the setting at a lot. It is listen, you don't go to this movie for a plot. It's really not about the story.
Nah.
It's about, from my experience, my take on it was, I need to be in the head of a middle schooler who is growing up in a decaying United States. What is their experience? They're literally in a school that is crumbling. And it's set, in the interview with them, they talked about how they had a very hyper-specific moment they wanted this to take place, and it's not clear in the text of the movie. But basically, it's that time period right after kids had to start going back to school in middle school and in the pandemic, before we figured stuff out. So people, that's why the kids all had masks. Didn't have to do that for the filming. They did it. That was the setting. It's like, hey, why are these masks all weird? Do we have to wear them?
Some of them are wearing them. Some of them aren't. Some of them are wearing them wrong. Yeah.
Teachers don't care.
Teachers don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Like it's definitely a vibes movie. Like you said, Alex, like that's kind of how I was pitching. I was like, you go in, and if you're trying to like feel the movie and feel what it's going for, I think there's a lot of good, there's a lot I took away from it. If you're going for a coming of age story or anything like that, it's not really got the goods.
No.
But that's okay. I don't think it needs to. I think
it's doing something else.
Yeah.
Doing something more abstract.
Absolutely.
Really fun Mickey Reese sporting role.
Yeah, Mickey's really funny in this.
Dirtbag teacher.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Mickey's so good at listen, I know his movies are one thing, but also he's so good at acting.
I know. He hates it too. He does so much.
He's so good at it.
It rocks.
I know he gets a lot of love in the local scene, so we don't need to belabor the point, but I really liked his short condo that played in the Sports Block one.
Yeah.
Really
Shouts
cool.
out Mary Buss, featured in that one. One
Very
of
nice.
Oklahoma's most beloved actors and best.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had Mary Buss on the show, the star of Strike Dear Mistress.
And Cure His Heart.
Thank you, His Heart. Thank you.
She's an angel, dude. She's one of my very favorite people in this city by a huge margin. Yeah.
Man.
She's so nice. It's unbelievable.
Like over the top.
Yeah.
I love it. That's the other thing I love about deadCenter is you get to meet people or see, like, the thing is, like, everyone here is working so hard to like make good art, but also be like nice people.
Right.
It's not necessarily, I've been to a lot of film festivals. That's not necessarily the case at every film festival.
Sure.
So what?
Joe's probably been to more film festivals than me. So it's like, not always.
Sorry.
It's a thing.
I cost us 20 more minutes. Continue.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, any other closing thoughts on deadCenter this year?
Can't wait to do it again. Glad I get a whole year before I have to.
I would do it again next week.
Yeah, what do we got going on?
Yeah, come on. What am I busy? I'll do it again right now.
I had a great time talking with a lot of awesome people. I feel very privileged to do that. But also, I'm like Dalton. I'm like, this was so much fun.
Yeah.
Loved it. Let's do it again in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, thanks so much for joining us today. All of you at this table, thank you so much for your contribution to deadCenter. Daniel and Joe, thank you so much for all of your written work you did at the Cinematropolis and coming out this evening. Dalton and Alex, thanks for being down to come and do a little crossover episode, inviting me onto your show at deadCenter as well. It was a good time hanging out with everyone. Go around the table. Where can people follow you in your work? Alex?
Hello, my name's Alex Sanchez. You can find me. I do stand-up shows around here sometimes. We'll see what the scene does. But I can be found on Twitter at Serious Sanchez. Is where I do most of my posting. But everybody loves to get in touch with me on Instagram, also at Serious Sanchez. So you can find me there too. I'll do my best.
Instagram.
I don't think visually. I don't know how to use it.
Instagram, it's the new Twitter at this point.
Yes, the posts are different.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I think I'm
a
seeing,
words guy.
I know, but if Dalton can pick up Instagram,
yeah,
there's hope.
I'm trying.
Oh, you should see this boy sling a story.
Yeah,
he's been
really
crushing it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're too sweet. No. You're too sweet.
Daniel Bokemper, where can people find you online?
Can I level with you, Caleb?
Yeah.
I'm just...
I said it for
I
him.
appreciate it. Thank you. I'm just ready to be done with this pretentious fucking podcast. And I can't wait for us to pull our fucking heads out of our asses and actually start talking about real shit, about real movies.
Yeah, man. When are these yahoos going to talk about a Batman movie?
Hey, listen, guys, we did. That review had a point. We did skip Transformers: Rise of the Beast to talk about deadCenter.
Oh,
so
you bastard.
I think it'll be fine.
I would talk about Rise of the Beast.
I would talk about which Toby Wigway tracks you should start with. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. See, now I'm gonna have to do a podcast on that. But anyway, go ahead, Daniel.
But besides that comment, please find me on the Cinematropolis. A lot of my deadCenter stuff, a review of The Awkward Stage, as well as the Midnight Shorts, Sinful Cinema, Black Barbie, a documentary, and Time Bomb Y2K. You can also find me at fleekattack.com writing reviews, as well as World Literature Today writing about books. But wherever you find me, just search Bokemper, spell it as best you can, and you'll fucking find me, I think. So,
guys, Daniel's really good at writing words. Just gonna say,
I do the words good.
Dalton Stuart, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm Dollywood Squares. I'm Dollywood Squares on Letterboxd, but you're going to have to drop the A because of character limits. I'm still on Twitter, but I'm not going to give you that handle. You're going to have to find me because I'm not really using it anymore. It's a bad place. It bums me out.
It's a bad place. Functionally, it's not even just like toxic. It's also becoming functionally a bad place. But anyway, continue.
No doubt. You can find me every single week over at the Good Trash Genre Cast talking a new movie, or not a new film, but new to us on our coverage, usually older films. But it was really fun covering deadCenter. If you want to hear me and Alex talk with Dustin every single night and sometimes in the middle of the afternoon. Again, it's Good Trash Genre Cast. We're getting ready to take a break from movies. This is a little programming tease. We haven't even announced this on our show. Last year, we did a top 100 to kind of celebrate our 10th anniversary. So we did like a 5-part countdown at each of us going over our top 100 films. We're going to do another countdown this summer, just to give us a little movie watching break. And we're going to do 4 different top 10s. We're going to do our top 10 favorite directors, our top 10 favorite TV shows, our top 10 favorite actors, and 10 films we would use to teach the 90s. So that'll be our programming for July. Yeah, so stay tuned for that over at Good Trash Genre Cast.
That is a fun series.
Thank you.
Check it out, man. I love that. Plus, it gives you another platform to talk about TV shows, which I know you're also passionate about.
Yeah, not as much as film, but I think about it pretty hard still. I don't follow it as closely, but I definitely try to give it the same level of critical thought.
I'm glad I'm going to come listen to you talk about The Wire. Don't worry.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder what this white guy in his 30s is going to say is the best TV show.
Hey, man, it's a good one. Joe Light, where can people find you online?
I guess I am still on Twitter, Joe_Lightly. My letterbox is JoJo Binks 1.
I really love
so
that.
good.
That's so funny.
Joe, that's
I really love it.
I just updated my top 4. Go check them out. Writing wise, Cinematropolis, doing interviews at No Film School again. I just did several TV interviews, editors of Queen Charlotte, sound team from Last of Us. Yeah. Cool stuff going on.
Just drop that in subtly, the sound team from The Last of Us.
They were really nice.
Yes.
That's good to hear. The Last of Us people who tell stories about the apocalypse are very nice.
They were.
I love it.
You'd have to be.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Joe, I fucking love The Ritual, dude. That's such a cool movie.
I just added it. That one and the sidebar, but that Strangers movie or the Stranger movie, both on Netflix. You can't find them anywhere else.
Okay, I don't know The Stranger.
I highly recommend.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Quiet Australian crime film.
Ooh,
Yes.
okay, like that.
Everyone watch it. It's so good.
And of course, I do love Pearl.
Yes.
That was I think there was some highway robbery at the Oscars last year. And yeah, we'll get into it.
Mia Goth will get her flowers someday.
One day, absolutely. She's crushing it. And hey, she's got another one of those in the trilogy Maxine still coming down the pipeline.
That's right,
so
Is that this year?
Next year.
I think it's next year, yeah. Listeners, you can follow the Cinematropolis, all the deadCenter coverage, tons of interviews with filmmakers, tons of great essays and interviews with Joe and Daniel, thecinematropolis.com. We also have, we did it got buried under all the deadCenter content. We did do Across the Spider-Verse, a very in-depth review about that film. Lots to talk about there. Don't listen to Dalton. It's definitely at least interesting visually.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's just ideologically suspect, if not bankrupt.
Oh man, I cannot wait to talk to you about this after we're done. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all C Masters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk. Frankly, I I'm proud to say I'm taking real strong baby steps to actually stop using Twitter. I don't think replacing one addiction with another is good, but I have been on Instagram, much like Dalton, a lot more, and it's gotten me off of Twitter, so it's good.
I know plenty of alcoholic who swapped it out for cigarettes and coffee, and it works great for them. And yeah, switching to Insta has been a nice, smooth methadone for getting off Twitter.
Yeah, it's dumber, but it doesn't make you want to die.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us for this very extensive deep dive into all of the deadCenter stuff. deadCenter 2023, amazing. If you want to learn more about the film festival, either the virtual film festival that you can access and buy tickets to now, or next year's film festival, find all of that at deadcenterfilm.org. We'll be back, as I noted at the top of the show, with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. That episode will be released the week of July 17th. But until then, enjoy the rest of your summer, ladies and gentlemen. And don't go driving your motorcycle off a cliff until after you've seen Part 1.